I was just an ordinary country boy after graduating high school. I stayed on my parents' farm, living the typical rural life. All through school, I was with Sarah Wallace, though I mostly called her Sadie. We grew up together, always a pair, almost like best friends. We often talked about getting married, starting a family, and running a farm of our own someday. As we got older, we became intimate, and I still remember the times we snuck down to the hollow to swim naked in the pond, or those moments tangled up on the hay bales in the barn. She was something special, and I couldn't imagine life without her. I never went to college. I chose to stay and help my parents run the farm while my brother and sister pursued higher education. It just wasn't for me. I loved farming. There's something incredible about working with nature, tilling the soil, and watching crops grow from tiny seeds into something bountiful. We were a country family, though not exactly struggling. Most of the money from the farm went right back into buying equipment and livestock. We raised cows, mostly beef cattle, and with over 120 head at a time, we needed plenty of hay to keep them fed. As for Sadie, she was a cute girl. I watched her grow up right beside me, and if you saw one of us, you'd see the other. Sadie had plans to go to college and study agricultural science. She always said that after we got married, she'd use what she learned to help me run the farm. Her parents, on the other hand, weren't too thrilled about the idea. They had bigger dreams for her, hoping she'd marry a doctor or someone important, but Sadie earned a full scholarship for 3 years, so they let her go. In hindsight, I think they were hoping that once she experienced the big city, she wouldn't want to come back and marry a farmer. In the end, they got what they wanted. I should mention that Sadie's dad worked in the local factory, and her mom was a cashier at the nearby grocery store. They had 2 other kids besides Sadie: Danny, who was a couple of years older and became a truck driver, and Lily, the youngest. I often remember how we would chase Lily away so we could be alone. Sadie was going away to college about 2 states over. Of course, we gave our undying love like 2 young people do. We weren't engaged or anything like that. In fact, I never even gave her a going steady ring. I was working the farm, and she was off to college. The first year, she wrote me all the time. She would come home about twice a year, and we would spend a little time together. Her parents wanted her with them. I could understand that because they loved her too. She seemed to have changed some to me, more big city instead of country girl. We were intimate again before she went back for the second year, but it was different, like she knew new things. I asked her about it, and she started crying. Right then and there, I knew she'd been with someone else. She wanted to try and explain, but to me, there wasn't any explaining to do. She was with another guy. That was all the explaining I needed. I asked her to leave. She left, and that was the last I saw of her. After that, I hardly got any letters, and then one day, she sent me a Dear John letter. I guess it was a Dear John letter, even though we weren't really going together. She had met a man and would be getting married. She told me how she would always remember our special times together. She did sign it Love, Sadie. The letter didn't tell me anything. All I knew was that I had lost my lifetime sweetheart. I was devastated. For a young man, my plans for the future were pretty much gone, at least with Sadie. My parents and family stood beside me, and I got over it. I had so many unanswered questions. My parents explained that when people are apart, their hearts grow fonder, or they go the other way. I guess mine grew fonder, and Sadie's went the other way. I decided to hell with women and worked the farm. In my spare time, I enjoyed hunting and fishing. The country is a beautiful place. Why anyone would want to live anywhere else is beyond me. I talked to Mrs. Wallace, that was Sadie's mom, a few times at the grocery store. She was a nice lady and just told me, "We all have changes in our lives. There will be someone else for you, Tony. Just give it time." About 2 years had passed since I received that letter from Sadie. One day, I was out fishing and saw someone across the cove fall into the water. I watched for a few seconds, and the person seemed to be struggling. I quickly kicked off my shoes and dived into the water. When I got there, I found Lily caught around some fishing line that had wrapped around a tree stump in the water. I told her to quit splashing and that I would get her loose. She held onto my neck as I managed to loosen the line and set her free. I carried her up to the bank and set her down. She had a nasty cut on her leg, so I ripped off my t-shirt, tore off a piece, and wrapped it around her leg. I couldn't help but notice her wet body. She wasn't a kid anymore. She was all woman. About that time, some guy showed up. "What the hell is going on here?" he asked. Lily looked up at him and said, "I fell in and nearly drowned." Then she added, "Well, you want to get your drink, Clint?" Turning to me, she said, "By the way, this is Tony, a friend of the family." "Hi, glad to meet you, Clint," I said. "Oh, can I have that beer you have in your hand?" I asked, and he handed it to me. He said his name wasn't really Clint. Lily just called him that when she got mad. He said his name was Aaron. We all kind of laughed as I took the beer and poured it over the scratch on Lily's leg. Lily, not to ruin your date, but you should let the doc take a look at that. I think it'll be fine, but I guess you're right, she replied. Also, I need to get out of these wet clothes. Do you have a change with you? Just my swimsuit. If you'll keep Clint Aaron here, we'll go change. She was back in a flash in a one-piece suit, but she looked sexy. She told Aaron to take her over to the clinic to get her leg looked at. Thanks, Tony. You always were like a big brother. Too bad, she said, and then she stopped and said she'd head over to the doctor's. She kissed me on the cheek. I told Aaron it was nice meeting him and that I might see him again sometime. As I walked away to swim back over to where my fishing equipment was, I began thinking of the things Lily had said my sister, and then too bad. I guess we all let our minds wander. It could have been about Sadie, or maybe even about her. Damn, she was a cutie, just like her sister. I got a call from Lily the next day. She wanted to thank me for saving her life. The water was only 4 feet deep. I think you would have been all right, but I'm glad I was able to help. By the way, your boyfriend seems like a nice guy, I said. Tony, we both know he's an idiot, and he's not my boyfriend. He's just a neighbor. He asked me if I wanted to go fishing, and I like to fish, so I said yes. Okay then, do you want to go fishing with me? I asked. Are you serious? Sure, you name the time and place, and I'll be there, she replied. Why can't I pick you up at the house? You're over 18 now, aren't you? Yes, I'm 20. I don't know what Mom and Dad would say, or even Sadie. Wait a minute, you can go out with Clint but not with me? What's everyone got against me? Geez, Tony, I'm sorry. It's just that my family just seems to be against me. It went quiet for a few seconds. I knew she wanted to say something but held back. It's okay. My parents know I don't have any feelings for Aaron. I mean, when Sadie wrote you, I was really pissed. You see, I always thought of you two together. I even had a light crush on you myself for a while, but you only had eyes for Sadie. I guess I said too much about how stupid Sadie was, and well, my parents might see it as me going after you. Look, Lily, I need a pal, not a girlfriend. I like to fish and hunt, and it's nice to have a friend with me. You remind me too much of someone I know to get serious about you. She dropped me like a hot potato when she found her lover in the big city. It's been 2 years now, and I'm not completely over her. Damn her. She just sends me a Dear John letter, and that settles it all. Well, screw her. Oh, God. I'm sorry, Lily, I didn't mean to hurt you. I know it's not your fault. Lily sounded a little teary-eyed, but she said to come pick her up after I finished my chores tomorrow. She'd tell her mom and dad that we're just friends, and that's all. Besides, she told me her big crush used to be on my younger brother, Luke. We did go fishing the next day. We even caught a couple of big ones. We got along like two pals. In the coming weeks, we went fishing and even hunted rabbits and groundhogs together. The only problem was, she reminded me too much of her sister. My younger brother was home from college, and I knew he hadn't seen Lily in a couple of years. The last time he saw her, she had pigtails and braces. They hardly knew each other, being a couple of years apart in school. Lily, I have a surprise for you. My little brother is home from college, and he asked if I knew any nice girls that he could ask out. Are you interested? Which brother? Luke. Oh my God. He would always pull my pigtails. Yes, it's Luke. He's the only brother I have. I could see she was flustered. He's grown into a pretty decent guy. I think you two would get along fine. Besides, since he's now in college, your parents should be happy and approve of him. Lily knew that was a dig because of Sadie and me. Tony, I would like to go out with Luke. Like most girls, we have crushes on a lot of boys growing up. I know I had a crush on you, and since you were taken, I kind of watched Luke, but he never really noticed me. Believe me, Lily, he'll notice you now. I smiled, and she smiled and then slapped me. I have something to tell you that I should have told you long ago. I promised Sadie that I would never tell you, but since you still have strong feelings about her, you deserve to know. Lily, is Sadie all right? Tell me. She loves you. Tony, Lily interrupted. She loves you and goes and marries another guy. And yeah, I know she had a kid. Sounds like real love to me. Tony, please listen to me. Sadie made a couple of big mistakes, and now I'm worried about her. Her husband, David, won't let her come visit us. She's only allowed to call us when David's around, so she doesn't tell us the truth. Please listen to me. Tony, I'm worried about my sister. Now I was all confused. She'd been married for almost 2 years and had a kid. She tells Lily she loves me, but I never heard from her. I wanted to know what was going on. No, I needed to know what was happening with Sadie. Tony, let me remind you that when Sadie first went to college, you two were dating. You always said you were going to get married, but it wasn't in the works. In fact, you never asked her to marry you. Oh, for crying out loud, Lily, I'm not an idiot. You're going to say she had sex with someone other than me. I'm not that stupid. Hell, she told me. I take it she got pregnant and had to get married. She has sex at college, comes home and has sex with me, and then goes back and has sex with her boyfriend again. She gets pregnant while, what a surprise. Yes, she went to a party with a few other girls in her dorm, got drunk, and had sex. I'm not saying she was right, I'm saying she did what thousands of other girls did, only she got pregnant. The guy was in his final year of law school. Sadie thought he was nice but really didn't love him, but now she was pregnant by him. She told him about it, and he said he'd marry her. Only there were a lot of conditions to be met. Conditions? What kind of conditions? First, you should know that she talked with mom and dad and told them she was pregnant and was confused about what to do. 1. She could abort it, never tell you, and hope you never found out. 2. She could tell you about it and hope you would accept the baby. 3. She could marry David and give the baby a life. Mom and dad said you would never accept another man's baby, and besides, they wanted her to find a guy like David. You know, being a lawyer, and all, they thought she should be glad he would marry her. So, she married David. Okay, so she made her choice. I don't know if I would have accepted the baby or not. I guess I would have to be faced with the situation to know what I would do. Tony, David is a slime bucket. He sleeps around with other women. She's scared, Tony. She bought a secret phone to call me on that David doesn't know about. She calls me and tells me everything. She still loves you, Tony, but doesn't know what to do. She asks me about you all the time, and I kept telling her I hadn't seen you until last week. I told her we went fishing together, and she started crying. She told me never to tell you, but I can't help it. You love her, and she loves you. You've got to help her, Tony. Please help her. What? She got pregnant. She married the guy. She had his baby, end of story. Where the hell do I come in? Whether I love her or hate her, if she doesn't love the guy, all she has to do is divorce him and take her baby home. As I said, end of story. Remember, I told you about the conditions? She signed her life away in a prenuptial agreement. She doesn't love him, Tony. She wants to leave him, but he won't let her go. This is the 21st century. You open the door and walk out of it. If she wants to leave, she'll have to leave her baby. In fact, David told her he'd kill the child if she ever left him. She would get nothing. She told him she didn't want anything but her baby. Now he's going to use the baby to make her have sex with his friends. I'm scared for her. She's my sister, cried Lily. I had to wonder what the hell Sadie had gotten herself into. Now he is going to go as far as sharing Sadie with others. She told him she'd blow his head off while he was sleeping if he tried. She's scared for her life and her child's, said Lily. Wait a minute. This scum is going to force her to have sex with other men and use her baby as blackmail? What kind of pig did she marry? His dad owns the law firm he works in. Sadie doesn't have a life. She did get her agricultural degree. Like she said she would, remember. It was to help you on the farm, Tony. She can't fight this battle alone. Mom and dad know about some of it, and they're heartbroken for her too. There's nothing anyone can do. They hold all the cards. Believe me, she's paid the price. I want to help her get out of this mess. What do you expect me to do, Lily? Walk in, grab her and the baby, and walk away? What's the matter with your parents? This is what they wanted, isn't it? They've only seen the baby about 6 times, and every time, David has to be present. They're worried too, Tony. We all are. Lily, I'm going to try to help. They'll see what I can do to get Sadie back home with her family. No promises beyond that. Tell your brother Danny I need to see him. Don't tell anyone else anything at all. If my plan goes south, I don't want anyone involved but me. Lily gave me a hug and a kiss. She asked if she should say anything to Sadie. Just tell her that I promised to get her home with her baby. Nothing more. Oh, find out everything you can about what's in the prenup. Now I had to think up a plan. We were just regular people trying to fight a corporate law firm. This wasn't going to be easy. If David was that blatant with his sex life, it would be to our advantage. I couldn't afford a private investigator, and besides, I didn't have the time. I decided to tell Luke part of the situation since I would fix him up with Lily. He had to help Dad and me with the farming for the next couple of weeks. I told him I couldn't give him the specifics because the less everyone knew, the better. I talked to Lily and told her I needed to talk to Sadie. I really didn't want to do it, but it was necessary. I needed to know David's whereabouts and who his dates were and when. Hell, I didn't even know where they lived. I knew they went to school in Indiana, but I was surprised to find out they lived in Dayton, Ohio. It was only 100 miles away. This was definitely better, here near our own backyard. A couple of years back, there were sniper shootings at vehicles on the highways. I thought about using that to my advantage. I got a call at home. "Tony, it's Sadie." I wanted to say, "Don't say anything, you made your bed and should have to sleep in it." But I was doing this for Lily. She was worried to death about her sister. She said, "You make very poor choices when choosing men. First a farm boy, and now a real prick of a lawyer." I could hear her start to cry. "Sadie, listen, I don't need your crying right now. I need information on your husband's lovers. What can you tell me? Names, future dates, where they got things like that." According to Lily, he has a lot of lovers. There were so many mean, hateful things I wanted to say to her. I wanted her to know she hurt me bad. It was my way of getting back at her. She was supposed to be my girl, but she cheated on me. Sadie told me her husband has sex with other women, but usually takes them to a little motel off Route 35. Most of the women had done something wrong in their life, and he was using it to blackmail them. Some of these women came to him as a lawyer and then got blackmailed for sex with the evidence. In my book, he was a conniving, scheming creep. I asked Sadie if any of the women would come forward and testify in court against David. She told me she had talked to a couple of them, and they were too afraid. They told her David was a madman when he got angry. Once they had sex with him, he let them go, and they wanted to stay as far away from him as possible. They never wanted to be near him again. I hate to say it, but David was smart in using the women only once. If anyone wanted to trap him, it would be hard since he never used them more than one time. He didn't need these women. It was nothing but an ego trip. That's probably why he told Sadie about them needed to brag about his conquests, and Sadie was his sounding board. No wonder he wouldn't divorce her. She knew too much, and it could backfire on him. Sadie gave me the names of a few women that her husband, David, had written in his appointment book. I noticed one name was Jessica Green. I asked Sadie if she was related to the mayor of Dayton. Sadie said she was the mayor's wife. She had been caught on a DUI charge, and David's father got her off on a technicality. He had learned more about her past during the arrest and kept it secret. David was now going to use it to blackmail her into one sexual favor. The only reason he told Sadie was that he was so proud of himself he needed the ego boost. How can you know so much and still can't get out of this marriage? I asked Sadie. Power, Tony. The Gates family name holds a lot of power around here. All I want is out, and they won't let me go. I could leave, but am afraid of what they might do to Lauren, my daughter. They said she wasn't going anywhere. The one time I tried to leave, David slapped me and held my little baby over the patio rail, saying next time he would drop her. I screamed and promised I wouldn't leave. It was the first time I heard the little girl's name. I didn't say anything. Sadie told me that David's father was planning to run against the current mayor in the next election. It hadn't been announced yet, but I was betting that David's dad didn't know David was using the blackmail information about the mayor's wife for sex. I was thinking he was holding it back to help when he ran against the current mayor during the election. I was forming a plan and also wanted a backup. I was going to need more help. I would try not to use any more people than necessary, but this was just too much and too big for one country boy to set up. I asked Luke and Lily to do me a favor. They needed to rent the room that David was going to use to meet with the mayor's wife. Sadie told me that in the appointment book, David had the following Tuesday circled. David always used room 6 since it was on the end, and he wouldn't be spotted as easily. He never spent the night, but just used the room, and then went home to brag about his latest conquest. I asked Luke and Lily to rent the same room on Monday, but to pay in cash and not use their real names. I reserved room 5 for 2 nights. Danny and I would need a place to stay, and it might help in setting up our video and audio equipment. I also went to another motel nearby to reserve a room for Sadie and the baby on Tuesday and Wednesday night. Lily called me and said it was all set. They had the room for Monday night. I told her that they didn't have to use IT. I just wanted the room key so I could get a duplicate made. Lily told me they would ask for 2 keys. When they turned them in, they'd just say they misplaced one and pay for it. A motel like this didn't worry much about lost keys. They weren't marked, so no one would know what it went to. They didn't even have room numbers on them. They were just passed through a coding machine and could be used over and over again. Luke came up to me and asked if they could use the room after all since he was going to be in Dayton. He wanted to take Lily out, and they could spend the night in the room. I told him, only if Lily wants to. I don't want you pressuring her. Hell, Tony, it was Lily's idea. So what do you need us to do? I want to put a pinlight camera in the room. Maybe we can set it up while you're using the room. I doubt if the cleaning people pay that much attention to the vents. Also, You can go back Wednesday morning, or as soon as David leaves, and tell the clerk you left something in the room and help remove the camera. What do you want to find on the tape? Luke asked. David, with the mayor's wife, I replied. Holy hell, Tony. Isn't the mayor's wife a prominent local figure? Yes, she is, and so is her husband. Hopefully, this will be our backup plan. I hate to involve other people unless we have to. What's the main plan, Tony? Luke asked. I can't tell you, bro. The less you know about it, the better, I answered. Luke and I worked on chores together. He thanked me for reintroducing him to Lily. He couldn't believe he didn't go after her in high school. Of course, she grew from a little girl in pigtails to a beautiful woman. She is one nice person, Luke. Please respect her, I cajoled. Danny, who was Sadie and Lily's brother, stopped by. I asked him if he was interested in helping us get his sister Sadie out of a bad marriage. Count me in, Tony. I was ready to kill the maggot when I found out how he was treating Sadie and my new niece. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, he said. I asked Danny if he remembered the sniper shooting on the interstate a couple of years back. He told me he did. The kid's father turned him in. I told Danny that I was going to do it to him. What? You're going to shoot me? You're supposed to shoot this David pig, he said. I had to laugh. Danny was funny. Maybe you'll shoot him later. For now, I'm going to shoot at your truck. I don't want anyone getting hurt, so we'll shoot at your truck, and you tell the sheriff that you've been shot at. You pull off the road, blocking David's vehicle at the motel. The sheriff's department will probably check the motel rooms after an anonymous call comes through saying someone saw the sniper go into one of the motel rooms. Hopefully, they will discover David and the mayor's wife. Most everything was ready to come together. Lily was the only one who had ever met David, so I told her to make sure he didn't see her wherever they went on Monday and Tuesday. I kept going over and over the plans in my mind. We had all the family members involved, and I was worried about the sniper shooting plan. I didn't think it was going to work. I decided to talk to Danny again. Danny, it isn't going to work, the sniper thing. I gave it a lot of thought, and it's not a good idea. It would scare all the people around Dayton, thinking there's a sniper loose. We'll just have to go with plan B and hope we get something on the video. Tony, I wanted to help out too. Anything at all I could do? He asked. Yes, there is. I want you to go Tuesday evening and get Sadie and her daughter and stay with them until this is over. They might need protecting. If all goes well, you can bring Sadie and her kid home by Thursday. Can you do that? Sure thing, Tony. No one will get near them, I promise. She's my kid sister, he replied. It was now Monday, and our plan was underway. Luke and Lily went and got their room keys. They came out and gave me one of the keys. They were right, there were no markings on the keys. They were going to take in a comedy play and have dinner. They seemed like they belonged together. I went in and got my room, number 5, for 2 nights. I talked to Sadie and told her where to meet Danny on Tuesday. I told her to make sure she stayed with him and to pack a few of her and the baby's things. She wouldn't be going back to her house. She wanted to talk with me, but I just told her, maybe later. I could hear the tears in her voice. I didn't know what I was going to do after all this was over. Right then, I was just hoping we would get through this mess. Monday night, after Luke and Lily returned from their night out, we told them we had already set up the video equipment. Danny and I had the time and the keys to both rooms, so we set it up. We asked Luke and Lily to lie on the bed so we could get the best position with the camera. The two of them kept kissing and just playing around. I reminded them of the video camera, so they might think about that. I figured it would kill the romantic part of their evening. We ended up running the camera through the vent in our room to the vent in their room. These old motels were set up differently, and we were able to hook up the video machine in our room. We received both sound and video. We told Lily and Luke that we were going to run the tape recorder that night. It would keep them from going too far. We really turned it off, but it kept them from overdoing it. At least they were under the covers and quiet. The next morning, Lily and Luke left fairly early. They turned the key in, and it only cost them $5 for the lost key. I stayed at the motel while they all went out for breakfast. I put a do not disturb sign on my door and waited for the people to clean the other room. Lily brought me back some breakfast, and I told her that she and Luke should go over to the motel where Sadie and the baby would be later and get a room there for the night if they were going to stay around. Danny would be stopping there later with Sadie and her daughter. We changed plans a little. Luke and Lily would stay with Sadie when Danny dropped her off. Danny would come back and be with me in case there was a problem. It made more sense this way. I wasn't sure what I might be in for, and support would be nice, and Danny was a pretty big guy. Luke got the motel room and returned. We all kind of sat around until about 5 p.m. As everyone was leaving, I told Danny I would see him after he got Sadie and her daughter settled in. I was getting really nervous. It was 7 p.m. when Danny returned. He said Sadie and the baby were with Luke and Lily, of course. He put the room under an assumed name. Now we just had to wait. Tony, I know you don't want to hear this, but Sadie said to thank you. She's always loved you. She said maybe someday, somehow, this might just be a bad memory. She's my sister, and I know she hurt you bad, but I promised her I would tell you. Other than that, I'll try to stay out of it, he said. Thanks, Danny. I know this is hard on everyone. I care for Sadie a lot, but I just don't know what's going to happen right now. I want her out of the clutches of this rotten maggot. We heard someone entering the room next door, so we turned on the video camera. It must be David was with a very unhappy-looking woman. He was talking nasty to her and laughing at her. We almost wanted to go in and kick his butt, but we needed proof of his cheating. Take off your blouse and show me those lovely curves. Come on, we don't have all day, he said. Please, David, don't make me do this. Please, she begged. He laughed and ripped her blouse half open. She was scared and unbuttoned the rest of her blouse. Come on, show me, he repeated. She wasn't a beautiful woman, pretty much a businesswoman in her 40s, neat and clean but not really sexy. You could see that all David wanted was to humiliate her. She cried out, but he shut her up with more orders. Keep your mouth shut unless you have my Johnny in it. Now get on with it, he spit out. She did what he wanted, and all this time, she was crying but trying to do his bidding. Come on, you did my dad, and now do mine. Unless you want your old man to find out. You know what they say, like father, like son. Damn, woman, you are almost as bad as my wife. It was really pissing me off now. I couldn't take much more of this. Having sex with his father must be what they had on her. David quickly undressed her, took off his trousers and briefs, and was standing there in front of her. The recorder was catching it all. You could tell she wasn't willing but was being forced into this act. She was crying. We had seen enough. We took the key to his room, opened the door, and ran in. She screamed as we pulled him off her, and Danny hit him hard, over and over. I told her to get her stuff and get the hell out of there. I then joined Danny and got a few good hits in myself. David didn't know what hit him. He had no idea who we were or why we were there. We left as quickly as we came, closing the door behind us. We saw the mayor's wife leaving the parking lot. We went back to our room and shut off all the lights. We watched on our monitor as a bloodied-up David slowly got up and staggered into the bathroom. He was out of view for about 20 minutes. He didn't know what hit him or why. When he got back into view, his face was a mess. He was lucky if he could even see out of his eyes. He had tissue stuck in his nose to help stop the blood. His face was a black and blue mass. He slowly got dressed and left the room. It surprised me that he was even able to walk. We listened for his car to start up and leave. We figured he was headed to the hospital. We turned off the video and opened our door. We went back into his room and saw a bloodied-up bathroom. We quickly disconnected the camera and picked up the ripped remains of the woman's blouse. We closed the door and left the premises for a while, just in case anyone was to return. We didn't want to be in our room. We went to a nearby bar and had a couple of beers. I dropped Danny off at Sadie's motel. I told him I would call him later. I told him under no circumstances was he to leave Sadie alone. We needed to protect her now more than ever. I rode past my motel and didn't see any changes, so I went to my room to get some sleep. I called over, and Danny answered the phone. I told him all was quiet, and I would talk to him tomorrow, and for him to make sure Sadie didn't leave that room. It was now Wednesday morning, and I made a couple of copies of the tape. I edited out everything after we entered the room. I was too nervous to eat, but stopped to get coffee. I went over to see how Sadie, Lily, and the guys were doing. No one slept well. Danny convinced me not to go it alone and said Sadie and her daughter could stay with Luke, and he could come with me. I was glad he suggested it because I could use his support but didn't want to ask him. I had no idea what I was about to face. As Danny and I were leaving, I looked over at Sadie. Damn, she was still beautiful. I glanced over and saw this beautiful little girl fast asleep, which brought a slight tear to my eye. Danny and I left and headed for the Gates law firm. We took one copy of the video with us. It was a big building. We located the floor their offices were on and headed up the elevator. I went up to the receptionist, who looked a little out of sorts. I guess they must have found out something about David. Can I help you? She asked. I would like to speak to David Gates, Sr., please. I'm sorry you need an appointment, and he is busy at the moment. It's about his son David. I know what happened to him and why. I have something I know he would be interested in seeing. One moment, please, she said as she went to a back office. A big man came out to see us. He didn't greet us, but asked us more, like ordered Jacinto his huge office in the back. "What do you know about my son?" He blurted out. "He was beat up in a motel on Old Route 35. The reason is on this tape." He grabbed my tape and slid it into his player. My God, what the hell was he thinking? We heard him say as he watched part of the tape, "Who are you, and what do you want? Are you the two who beat him up like that? Are you some kind of blackmailers?" "Sir, we aren't blackmailers. You can have that tape if you do us a favor." "What the hell is going on? What is it you want?" he asked. "We want your son David to sign divorce papers and leave Sadie and her daughter alone." "What? This is about that wife of his. She isn't going to get a damn dime of his money." "Mr. Gates, the next time I hear another derogatory remark about Sadie, this conversation is over, and I will turn that tape over to the press. I'm sure it will do wonders for your political career. Now, Sadie doesn't want any of your damn money. All she wants is for him to sign divorce papers and let her and her daughter go. She is willing to forego any child support. All she wants is out of this marriage." I had read their prenuptial agreement. I was sure that his doing the mayor's wife would be grounds for divorce, but as I said, she just wanted out. I knew we might be just country boys, but we had this big-time lawyer over a barrel. He changed his tone of voice with us. What did you say your name was?" He could see we weren't going to answer his question. So he continued, "Look, give me a couple of days, and I'll talk to my son and see what we can work out," he said. I yelled out, "I know you run this firm, and your son is nothing but an egotistical yes man. You have 3 hours to get the paperwork set up and your poor excuse for a son to sign it. We will be back at noon with Sadie to sign the papers. If you don't have them, then we will be going over to see the mayor. The ball is now in your court." 3 hours? Are you out of your mind? It takes time to set up paperwork on something like this. Then I suggest you don't delay. Your secretaries better get started and get it typed up. You have to get over to the hospital and get your son's signature on it. Just so you know, Mr. Gates, this isn't a game, and I will follow through on my threat. I know you taped this conversation, and I have nothing to lose. By the way, give me back my tape. The mayor or news media might want to see it." He knew I wasn't bluffing and probably had copies, so he handed it back to me. 3 hours, Mr. Gates. I won't accept any excuses." Danny and I got up and headed out of there. We didn't want to go back to the motel in case Mr. Gates had us followed. Now we had 3 hours to wait. My nervous stomach was finally calming down. Danny and I went out and ate breakfast. We took a ride around the city, then headed back to the motel. We had to pick up Sadie and make sure she was protected. At the same time, we just had no idea what to expect. Lily and Luke were staying at the motel with Lauren, while Sadie went with us. We headed back to the Gates law firm. I had them both wait in the car while I went up to Mr. Gates' office. The receptionist told me that Mr. Gates was waiting for me. I took a deep breath and walked into his office. He acted like he'd gotten some of his composure back. "Well, Mr. Lewis, yes, I found out who you are. David has agreed to the divorce and has signed the paperwork. Where is Sadie Gates? We need her signature on this document and to have it verified." I looked at the document, and it was indeed signed by David Gates, Jr., and witnessed. I picked up my cell phone and called Sadie on her track phone. I told her to come up and sign the document. While we were waiting for her and Danny to come up, I reiterated to Mr. Gates that if he didn't treat her with respect, the deal was off. I knew it kind of knocked him off his high horse. "Sadie," he said, "according to this document, you and David are applying for a divorce under irreconcilable differences. Of course, it will take a few months to go through the courts. You will not be receiving any money, either alimony or child support, per the agreement. If you agree to these terms, you just need to sign these forms, and my secretary and your friend Mr. Lewis will witness it." Sadie looked at me and signed the forms, and we witnessed them. "I'm sorry that your marriage did not work out. Of course, even though David is the father of the child, he will not be involved in the child's life. We ask that you live up to the terms of the contract," J. Gates, Sr. said. Sadie looked at him. "Rest assured that I want no contact at all with your son. All I want is my daughter and to be left alone." We all got up and quickly left the offices with our copy of the divorce decree. We headed back to the motel to get Lily, Luke, and the baby. Even though we had the motel for another night, we decided to leave that evening and head for home. I told Danny to take Sadie and her daughter since he had his vehicle all packed up with their things they took. I would ride with Luke and Lily. Sadie looked at me and thanked me for all that I had done for her. I wanted to throw another dig at her and tell her I did it for Lily, but I didn't have the heart. I just told her she was welcome and that I didn't do it alone. Her brother and sister, and my brother Luke helped as well. Of course, she was crying as she hugged each of them. She asked me if she could hug me, too. I put my arms around her, and she hugged me like there was no tomorrow. She felt so good, but I couldn't let the moment fog my judgment. I still needed time, and a lot of it. We all made it home, and I asked Sadie if she would go with me to my lawyer the next day to make sure this agreement was legitimate. Ralph was our lawyer for the farm's affairs. I handed him the agreement, and he told us he didn't understand why there were no support payments in it. I told him the truth that Sadie just wanted out of the marriage at any cost. He did say the agreement was totally legitimate and that the divorce should be final in a few months. He was a small-town lawyer, but he was honest and fair. He shook his head when he saw the name Gates Law Firm on the letterhead. He told us he never much cared for big-city lawyers. I took Sadie back to her parents' home. She kept telling me how sorry she was and how stupid she had been. She asked if we could talk, and I told her I needed time. From that day forward, whenever I saw her, we talked a little bit more. About a week later, she started coming over to my parents' house. She would sit and talk with them, and I would go to the pond behind the house to fish and think. The second day she came, she had her daughter Lauren with her. I walked back to the pond, and when I looked up, little 3-year-old Lauren was walking toward me. She fell on her bottom walking over the uneven ground, but got up and kept coming. "Hey, Sadie, your daughter's out here. You should keep a better watch on her. She could have fallen into the pond," I yelled. I looked at the door, and Sadie was watching her the whole time. "I knew you would keep your eye on her and protect her." "She wanted to see you," replied Sadie. The little girl came right to me. She was so cute, with blonde curls and a big smile. "Dada," she said. "No, Dada is Mark," I said, tapping my chest with my finger. She tapped her chest with her little finger and said, "Laura." "Me, Laura." "You, Dada." She could speak a few words and short sentences. I told her again, "Me, Mark." "You, Laura." I felt like Tarzan talking to Jane, only my Jane was only 3 and didn't understand. "Fishies." "I see fishies," she said, looking into the pond. I couldn't help it. I picked up the little tyke and set her on my lap as she watched the fish. Every day after that, she would waddle down to see me at the pond in the evening. I knew Sadie was up to something, but this little girl was just sweet and innocent. I asked my dad why Sadie was coming over every day. He told me she was explaining some of the new techniques in growing hay and that I should listen to her ideas. He told me we could probably save some money. He said she really had some good ideas. I told him that she could tell him about it, and he could just tell me later. "Tony, can I talk to you, Manto Man?" he asked. "Of course, Dad. You can talk with me anytime. Have you ever had sexual relations with anyone besides Sadie?" "Dad, that's a bit personal, isn't it? It doesn't seem right to be telling you something like that." "Tony, I don't want to know their names. I just want to know if you ever had sex with anyone besides Sadie." "Yes, I did, Dad. There were 3 other women. Did you do it with any of them before Sadie got married?" "God, Dad, yes. One of them." "So, you did the same thing Sadie did." I cut in on Dad. "Yeah, Dad, I did, but I didn't have their kid." I blurted out. Dad looked at me and took a deep breath. "Yeah, you're right. Son, you didn't have their kid," he said in a dejected voice as he got up and walked away. I won that argument, so why did I feel so bad about it? Damn it. The next day, I had to go into town to get some farm supplies. I was in the hardware store and saw outdoor folding chairs. I bought 2, then noticed a matching children's one and picked it up for Lauren. I had a thought and went over to the fishing supplies section and got a child's bamboo fishing pole. They're really light, and little Lauren would get a kick out of it. I went down to the pond, and just as I looked back, here came the little squirt down to see me. I opened her little chair for her and set it down next to mine. She loved it. Her little feet were able to touch the ground. I pulled out her little fishing pole and handed it to her. I didn't even get any bait on it when she started bouncing the bobber up and down in the water. "I'm fishing, Daddy. I'm fishing." I couldn't get her to stop calling me Daddy, so for now, I just gave up. I started calling her sweetheart. I looked up, and here came Sadie with the other folding chair. "Mommy, I'm fishing," smiled little Lauren. Yes, Mommy sees my little Lauren fishing, just like Mommy used to do. While little Lauren was so-called fishing, I talked with Sadie. "Why didn't you use protection?" I blurted out. "I was on the pill ever since you and I started making love. I ran out about a week before that stupid party and just didn't think about it. I always thought the pills were good for a week or so after you stopped taking them. I picked up a prescription when I came home that weekend, but I guess the damage was done." "I'm so sorry, Tony. I know you married him because of the baby, but why did he marry you? I mean, you're beautiful and all, but he didn't love you. So why did he marry you? He told his dad he got me pregnant. His dad told him to marry me because he didn't want some bimbo running around saying his son got her pregnant. David's father wanted a political career. Believe me, I didn't know it at the time, or I would have never married him. God, I was so stupid. Of course, that's why there was the prenuptial agreement. They wanted to make sure I received nothing. Well, hopefully, you'll be free of them in another month or so and can go on with your life. She noticed I didn't say anything about us. I went back to fishing with Lauren. Okay, sweetheart, let's put some bait on it and see if you can catch a fish. I wanted her to get a bite so bad, but it didn't happen that night. The next evening, here came my new little gal pal. She sat in her little chair, and I put some bait on her hook. I was teaching her to fish. She got a bite. Daddy, I got fish. I got fish. She yelled. Yes, you did. Pull it out, and we'll put it in a bucket. It was a little bluegill. It wasn't much bigger than her bait, but she was happy. She was yelling so loud that Sadie, Mom, and Dad all heard her. They all came down to see her first fish. Mommy, I got fish. I got fish. Yes, honey, Mommy sees your fish. It was only a couple of inches long, but she wanted to save it. It was still alive, and we left it in a big pail overnight. She wouldn't let us throw it back. The next afternoon, I went into the house, and Mom was babysitting Lauren. What's going on, Mom? Was Sadie here? Yes, she had to take her mom to a dentist appointment and asked me if I could watch the baby. I started out the door, and Lauren followed me. No, sweetheart, stay here with. I didn't know what she called my mom. My mom looked at me and said, Grandma. She calls me Grandma. Lauren looked at me and was trying to say she wanted to put her fish back in the pond. I asked her why, and she told me, so it can be with its mommy and daddy. I took her and her fish in a pail and walked it down to the pond. She let her fish go free. She looked up at me and said, Pea pie, Laura, pea pie. I thought she had to go to the bathroom, so I picked her up and took her into the house. I told my mom what she said, and Mom laughed. Tony, she's telling you she already went and wants to be changed. So change her, Mom. You change her. I'm cooking dinner. It won't kill you. It's only a pee-pee diaper. I knew it was useless to argue with Mom, so I decided to give it a try. Lauren climbed up on the couch and lifted her legs for me to change her. She started giggling as I fumbled with the diaper. I finally got the wet one off and was getting ready to put the new one on. Mom told me to put on a lot of baby powder. I guess I put on too much because there was white powder everywhere. Lauren was laughing, so I blew strange sounds on her little belly, and she laughed even more. I looked back, and there was Sadie, watching back, and there was Sadie, watching me. I stopped what I was doing, and Lauren ran to her mother. Tony, can I ask you a question? And I would like for you to be as honest as possible, Sadie asked. Sure, go ahead. I'll answer it, I replied. If you just met a nice woman and found out that she loved you, then you also knew that she was divorced and had a beautiful baby. If you had feelings for this woman, could you accept her and her child? Without thinking, I answered too quickly. Of course I could accept them. Then why can't you accept me and Lauren? She walked out, crying, taking Lauren home. God, I felt bad. I had tears in my eyes as I walked down to the pond to think. A couple of minutes later, my mom came down to see me. Tony, there's something I need to show you. Would you please come up to the house with me? I walked into the house and sat on the couch. Mom went into the closet and brought out a box of pictures. She was shuffling through them when she handed me one. My God, Mom, who is that little girl? She looks almost like Lauren. It isn't a little girl, Tony, it's you. When you were around 3 years old, you looked so cute, but your dad took you for a haircut the next day, cutting off all those beautiful curls. I saved it because I always thought you were so cute. And you're right, it does look like Lauren. That's impossible, Mom. I'm sure this David guy, being a lawyer, got a DNA test done. No, I don't think so, Mom replied. I knew tomorrow I would have to ask Sadie about that test. The next evening, I was waiting for my little gal pal to show up. I needed to ask her mom some questions. They didn't show up at their regular time. I waited an extra half hour and decided to put our fishing gear and chairs away. As I got to the porch, Luke and Lily pulled up and ran up to me. Sadie and Lauren were in a hit-and-run car accident on their way here. The ambulance rushed them to the hospital. We don't have any idea how they are. We rushed over here to tell you, cried Lily. I jumped into the car, and we headed over to the local hospital. We ran in, and the nurse saw us. The doctor is looking at them both now. Please just be seated, and he will be right out. The doctor asked if we were family. Lily told him that Sadie was her sister and that I was her boyfriend. I wasn't going to argue that point right then. Luke sat back and waited with us. How are they, doctor? Are they okay? I asked. Well, the woman is all right. She was a bit shaken up and has a few scrapes and bruises. She'll be all right. I gave her a sedative and she's resting now. The little girl is in critical condition. She had some internal bleeding and lost a lot of blood. We got the bleeding stopped, but I don't know if she'll make it. She's awfully weak and needs blood. This is a damn hospital, give her the blood. I shouted. I was in panic mode, worried sick about my little gal pal. Easy, son. It's not that simple. She's AB negative, and hospitals don't always have it in stock. It'll be at least 2 hours before we can get her the blood she needs. By then, it might be too late. I turned toward the waiting room. Luke, get in here now. Lauren needs our blood. Hold on, son. She needs AB negative. We are both AB negative. Hurry up and take all you need, doctor. I insisted. Lily, call my dad and tell him to get down here as fast as he can's AB negative too. The doctor looked surprised. I can't believe this. You're all AB negative? He asked. Yes, just Dad, me, and Luke. Mom and Sis are both a positive. He had the nurse take me down to the blood bank and told them to put an extreme rush on it. He came down a few minutes later to double-check our blood type. He couldn't get over all of us having AB negative. By the time I was done, my dad had arrived. He looked at me, and I just nodded. He had told me years ago about us having special blood. The odds were too great it probably wasn't by chance that Lauren had our type. I asked the doctor to take a sample for a DNA test, just to be sure, and he agreed, though it would be a few weeks before the results came back. After giving blood, we were all in the waiting room. Sadie's mom and dad, my mom and dad, Luke, Lily, and me, all of us were there. Danny was on the road, but we called him, and he said he'd come in later. I went in to look at Sadie. Luckily, she was sleeping through the ordeal. Lauren was her life, and I knew she'd be devastated if something happened to her. As I went back to the waiting room, a police officer was talking to everyone. Apparently, a Hitandran driver had forced Sadie's car off the road, down an embankment, and into a tree. Luckily, they had on their seatbelts, but the impact was so hard that the belt cut into Lauren's insides, damaging her internal organs. The police officer said a witness saw that the license plate was covered and that it was an expensive black car. She didn't know much about cars, but she could tell it wasn't a cheap one. This was no accident, and I was pretty sure who was behind it. The officer said he had no leads but would keep us informed. Lily and Luke looked at me, knew they were thinking the same thing. David Gates had vowed he would kill Lauren if Sadie ever left him, and he might just have been crazy enough to try. We had all been there for hours when a smiling doctor came out. Thanks to the blood she received, the little girl is going to make it. We've received 2 more pints just in case she needs more. She's young, and her body will heal quickly. She should be back on her feet in no time. Doc, can I see her? I know it's a little irregular, but I need to see her, I said. The doctor took me into her room. She had all these tubes coming out of her little body, and I just started crying. Her little hand was lying there open, and I put my finger in it. Her hand closed around mine. Maybe reflex, maybe not. I left her room and saw Danny had arrived. I pulled him aside to talk to him. He told me he had to go to Indiana in the morning, but he could go through Dayton on his way. I told him I was going with him. The next morning, Danny and I were on the road. I had a copy of the video with me, just in case we needed it. We parked around the corner from the Gates Law Firm building, strolled through the parking garage, and our suspicions were confirmed. David's black Mercedes had a damaged front end on the right side, with blue paint on it from Sadie's car. We went back to the truck, and I told Danny to drive to the government offices. While he waited for me, I put a copy of the tape in an envelope and dropped it in the mayor's mail slot. We returned to the truck and continued on to Indiana. 2 days later, we came back through Dayton and then headed home. We stopped by the hospital to find out the latest on Lauren. Sadie was sitting there in a chair, talking to Lauren. Sadie got up and kissed me, and I let her. Lauren said, "Hi, Daddy," and told me in her own way that she had been in a car accident. The doctor said she was doing fine and would be out in a couple more days. The doctor told me that while he was examining her, she had said she wanted to go fishing and that her daddy takes her to the pond. The doctor kind of smiled at me. He had sent the blood test in, but it would still be another week. He still couldn't get over all of us having the same blood type. Later that day, most of the family was at the hospital, checking on Sadie and seeing how Lauren was doing. Luke turned on the television, and the news was on. The reporter announced that a prominent attorney had been found dead at a motel on Route 35 in Dayton. He was killed with a single shot between the eyes from a 9mm pistol at point-blank range. He was discovered by the cleaning lady earlier that afternoon. His name was David Gates, Jr. They had no further information at that time. We all just sat there. Most were shocked, but no one shed a tear. My dad was the first to speak. Good riddance to bad rubbish. You reap what you sow. Sadie looked like she was in a daze, staring at the TV and learning that David was shot to death. She looked over at me, as if wondering if it might have been me who had something to do with it. I kept my face steady and offered no answers. The next morning, a police inspector from Dayton showed up at the hospital to see Sadie. He asked to talk to her privately, but she refused. These people are all my family and friends. I have no secrets from them. What is it you want? If you think I killed David, you're wrong, but I'm glad he's dead. You can check with the nurses. I haven't left this hospital in over 4 days, except to change clothes. Do you have any idea who might have reason to kill him? The inspector asked. Half the women in Dayton or their husbands, I suppose. You see, officer, my husband got off on using women. It was an ego trip to him. He loved humiliating women, especially married ones. So any one of their husbands could have done either. Maybe one of the women themselves finally had enough of him, Sadie replied. The officer looked over at us. Do any of you own a 9mm pistol? He asked. I spoke up first, telling him I did. Dad said he did, too, and Danny and Luke followed up. I would like to see those weapons for testing, the officer said. I laughed. You wanting to test our guns tells me you probably work for Gates Sr. Why else would you worry about an unholy like his son? Sure, stop by the farm, and we'll show you our gun collections. The officer looked pissed. Listen, hold off on the gun thing. If any of you shot him, I'm sure you wouldn't hand me the weapon. Look, it's my job to follow up on these killings. I never liked David or his father, and most good officers don't. The reason I had to come here was because of Sadie still being his wife, and that we found damage on his car. In checking Hitandran accident reports, Sadie's accident came up. Sorry to have bothered you folks. The officer left, and we quickly changed the subject. We had enough of the Gates family, and were glad it was over, or so we thought. Lauren was released a few days later, and Sadie came over to the house to see me. She had received another document from David Gates, Sr., asking her to sign this document and return it. We took it over to our attorney, Ralph, to take a look at it. He just laughed. What's so funny, Ralph? Should she sign it and send it back? Let me get back to you this afternoon. I need to make a couple of calls first, said Ralph. This has to do with David's will. Sadie and I left the attorney's office, and I asked her if she'd go by the hospital with me. The doctor had called to say my DNA results were back, though I hadn't mentioned it to Sadie yet. Sadie asked me why I needed to go to the hospital, and I told her it had to do with my blood type. She was a bit worried, but I assured her it wasn't anything bad. I just had it tested and needed to see the results. The doctor wasn't in, but the nurse handed me an envelope. I opened it, and accompanying the results was a note from the doctor saying, "Congratulations, Tony, you are the father of that special little girl." I read it and started crying. I knew it ever since Mom showed me the photo. Sadie grabbed the papers from my hand to see why I was crying. She read the note. Oh my God, I never thought. Oh my God. Sadie had tears streaming down her cheeks. Sadie, didn't you or David ever ask for a DNA test? No, I just assumed that David was the father. He never got tested. I can't believe this is true. You're Lauren's real daddy. Oh my God, I'm so happy. She started crying again and gave me a big hug. Later that day, we went back to the attorney's office, and he explained to us about the divorce decree again. The problem is, David died before the divorce was finalized. Of course, with the prenuptial agreement, Sadie was written out of his will, but I suppose Lauren wasn't born yet, and they never added an addendum to exclude her. Since she's his next of kin, according to law, she's entitled to an inheritance. David Sr. will likely fight it, but ITLL cost him a lot and hurt his reputation even more. Ralph suggested we ask for a settlement. Sadie agreed, and we wrote to David Gates Sr., explaining the situation. He wrote back, saying he knew I was Lauren's father and would fight it. What connections that man must have to find out information that Fastwed just learned it ourselves. He said he wasn't going to give that child $500,000. I wrote back, stating, Mr. Gates, we know David broke our last agreement by running Sadie off the road, and Lauren almost died because of your son's actions. We propose a compromise. Give Lauren a check for $100,000 for everything you put her and her mother through. Sadie will put the money in an account for Lauren's medical expenses, and if any remains, as a college fund. Of course, if you choose to go to court, we will have to file charges against your deceased son for the Hitandrin. Here is the signed copy of your agreement with an addendum for Lauren. If you agree, please sign it and send us a copy along with the check. Hopefully, this will be the last we hear from each other. 3 days later, we received the check. My new little gal pal and I were sitting in our chairs, fishing. I had my rod and reel, and she had her bamboo pole. "I'm fishing with Daddy," she said. "Yes, sweetheart, you're fishing with Daddy," I said, with tears in my eyes. Sadie waved the letter and check from David Gates, Sr. as she walked toward us. She sat down next to me, looking serious. "Tony, we need to talk. I know I hurt you, and I can't take any of it back. God, I wish I could. I'll do anything for you. Tony, please give me another chance to prove I love you," she said, crying now. "I love you, and Lauren loves you. What can I do? Just name it, and he'll do it." I stared at her face with tears streaming down her cheeks. I would been thinking a lot. "The only thing you can do for me is marry me, Sadie. Marry me, and let's leave all this behind us." She cried even harder as she hugged me. We looked over at little Lauren, who said, "Daddy, I caught another fish. I caught another fish." We looked over, and this time, she had a bigger fish. I took it off her line and put it in her pail. She tipped it over and let the fish back into the pond. "I think that was the daddy fish," she said. "He had to go home. Sadie and I got married, and we're living a great life. I have my girl and my little fishing pal. We're building our own house on the other side of the pond. Mr. and Mrs. Wallace are happy for us. I guess being married to a farm boy isn't such a bad thing after all. Lily and Luke are dating, and now engaged. They said they'd get married as soon as he finishes college, probably a year or 2 from now. Mom and Dad are 2 very happy grandparents. Sadie couldn't believe it when she saw the picture of me as a kid. Danny is still driving trucks, and he loves it. They never did find out who killed David Gates. Junior Sadie never asked me about my trip with Danny, and I never volunteered any information. Some things are best kept unknown. Most stories end with a couple making love and the wife getting pregnant with another child. But this one is a little different. We do continue making love, but I asked Lauren if she wanted a little brother or a puppy. She picked the puppy. We are now proud parents of a beautiful little girl and her German Shepherd with a big, toothy smile. She picked him out herself at the animal shelter. We are one happy family. More kids? Well, see, we have a whole life ahead of us. Thanks for watching. Could you forgive someone like Tony did with Sadie? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories. It was a crisp morning in late June when I stepped into the courtyard. The well-maintained grass stood out green against the brick buildings and gravel paths. Being part of the staff, I had the privilege of walking on that sacred ground. The sun was already warm, and a sparrow's song accompanied my steps as I inhaled the fresh morning air. Most of the students had left for the early summer break, and I had just locked up my lab. I had 8 weeks to spend in this picturesque part of rural Kentucky, but it felt like I had merely swapped one cage for another. True, I could come and go as I pleased. People, especially the parents, treated me with respect, and I even had an affair with Isabel, the school nurse. However, I'd never be able to return to my hometown, and I couldn't marry Isabel. I was destined to become a lonely old man with little more to look forward to than the sparrow's song. Oddly, it didn't seem to bother the bird the way it troubled me. I was still lost in my thoughts when a voice interrupted from behind. "Well, if you've got to hide, I can think of worse places to do it." I turned to see a middle-aged man leaning against the wall beside the archway I had just passed through. He smiled, clearly pleased with himself. I'd soon wiped that smile off his face. "Are you talking to me? I'm not hiding from anyone. Come on, Dad." To disappear so effectively, and for it to take more than a year to find you, you must have been hiding. I haven't the faintest idea what you're talking about. Now, unless you're a parent or staff here, you're trespassing, I said sternly. I suggest you leave and don't return. I took advantage of my privilege to cross the grass and headed toward the arch in the opposite wall. As I walked away, I heard him calling after me. "I'm not leaving until you talk to me, Dad. We have things to discuss. Leave me alone. I have no children, just go away." I quickened my pace through the cloisters toward my apartment. I could hear his footsteps echoing on the flagstones behind me. I pulled out my key and quickly let myself in, slamming the door behind me. He knocked several times before shouting through the mail slot, "You'll have to come out sometime. I'm not going anywhere. I just want to talk to you." I was trembling as I began making some coffee. It had been over 6 years since I felt this way. I sat at my kitchen table, trying to regain my composure. I heard voices outside and then a key in the door. I turned and was relieved to see Isabel Hill enter, closing the door behind her. I breathed a sigh of relief. She looked puzzled as she spoke. "David, there's a middle-aged man sitting outside your door. He claims to be your son. Is there something you haven't told me?" "He's not my son. He's mistaken. I have no children." "I told you that." "Yes, David, I know you did, and I believe you. But why does that middle-aged man believe he is your son? Why are you so shaken by his presence?" I looked into Isabel's deep brown eyes. She was the one bright spot in a dark 6 years. She was the nurse at Lakeside University and took care of the students' physical and emotional well-being. Many homesick 12-year-olds had cried on her shoulder. The older boys would give anything for a similar cuddle. Even in her nurse's uniform, she looked stunning to me. Over the past year, we had developed a relationship, even exchanging keys to each other's apartments. The only thing preventing us from living together was the potential gossip among the students and the impact it might have if the parents found out. I sat down, burying my face in my hands. "I'm sorry, Isabel. There are things about me you don't know, and that middle-aged man is a reminder of a time I'd rather forget. But he is not my son. He might think he is, but he's wrong. So tell me, David, why would he think he is your son?" "Because I'm married to his mother." Isabel sat down, shocked. "Well, that certainly explains a few things." "You mean like why you haven't asked me to marry you?" "Yes, that's the reason. I can't marry you or anyone else because I'm still married to her. So divorce her." "I can wait. I can't divorce her without revealing my whereabouts, though that might be academic now. Now I'm really worried, David. Have you done something bad? Is that why you don't want to be found?" "I've done nothing that I haven't paid for, but if they find me now, they will put me back in prison." Isabel reached out and gently lowered my hands from my face, holding them in hers. "Okay, David Turner. First, you're going to tell me the whole story. Then we are going to get that middle-aged man in here and find out what he wants." It all started a little over 6 years ago, or at least that's when I realized what was happening. They used to call me Cunning David, and I thought it was just because of my strategic thinking. But soon, I learned there was another reason. Just like the character in the movies, I always seemed to be at the center of everything. It wasn't always like that. I had worked at Willowbrook Institute for 8 years and had always done my fair share of evening and weekend classes, but no more than anyone else. However, after Michael Roberts was appointed vice principal, things began to change. At first, I thought my job was in jeopardy because I went from always exceeding my teaching hours to barely scraping by. Being below minimum hours meant I couldn't refuse any course I was offered. Soon, I found myself working until 9 p.m. 4 nights a week, not to mention the weekend classes I had to cover. My wife, Elena, was the faculty secretary, and when Michael Roberts was promoted, he took her with him, so she worked normal office hours. We became like ships passing in the night. Our love life was non-existent. I got home at 9:30 p.m. and needed at least an hour to wind down before going to bed. Elena turned in at 10 p.m. and was almost always asleep by the time I joined her. I told Elena I would quit the college rather than continue destroying our marriage, but she urged me to be patient, saying things would work out. By the 3rd year of this treatment, I finally reached the end of my tether. My subject was computer science, but I had to teach mathematics and physics because I was told there was no demand for computer science. I was surprised when a colleague who ran the general engineering course approached me. "David, I've got a problem. I need to deliver a computer science unit, but I'm out of my depth. Am a mechanical engineer give me friction, drag factors, and equilibrium, and am your man. But this stuff? You can't see it or touch it. How do I teach that? I've got some books, but I need advice on how to present it and what practical work to assign." "Hang on, Liam. Are you under hours or something?" "Good God, no. I'm into overtime for this. That doesn't make sense. I'm under hours and available. I'll do it for you." When I walked into Samuel Jackson's officino, not the filmmaker, just a coincidence, he looked surprised. "Morning, Samuel. I've come to save you some money. I'm always up for that, David. What's the deal? Liam wants someone to deliver the computer science unit in his course. He's over hours. You'll have to pay him overtime. If I do it, you don't have to pay overtime, and it'll be up to my minimum hours. Sorry, David. No can do. But why not? It doesn't make sense, and the students will do better if I teach them. Liam admits he doesn't have a clue. I'm sorry, David, but just like you, I have to do as I'm told. You mean someone has instructed you to keep me under hours? I can't say anymore, David. Full of anger, I stormed into the faculty head's office. I put the same deal to him and got the same noncommittal response. It seemed I had enemies in high places. I moved up the chain of command, hoping to reach someone who couldn't pass the buck upward. Elena was surprised when I walked into her boss office. You can't just barge in, David. You have no appointment. He's busy. I walked in and found Michael Roberts at his desk, talking into the phone. He motioned for me to sit. I fumed silently while he finished his call. Finally, he hung up, shuffled some papers, and turned to me with a smile. Now, David, what's got you so hot under the collar that you'd interrupt my call? I'm trying to find out who's deliberately keeping me below minimum hours, even when it costs the college money to do so. So far, everything points to you. Unless you're going to tell me that you're only following orders, and I need to speak to the principal. I've no idea what you're talking about, David. Why don't you explain? Michael Roberts was a tall, slender man with silver hair and sharp blue eyes. I looked into those eyes as I recounted my story, hoping to catch some sign that I had found the right man. Not a flicker as he expressed concern about the college's finances. When I finished, he got up, walked around, and opened the door. Well, David, thank you for bringing this to my attention. They'll get to the bottom of it as soon as I return from the Association of Colleges conference. When will that be, Peter? Well, I leave tomorrow, and I'll be in Lexington for the next 4 days, so it will be Monday. So you'll be down in Lexington for 4 days? That's near Georgetown, isn't it? Well, I would say Georgetown is near Lexington, but yes, it is. Why do you ask? Oh, nothing really. It's just that my son lives in Georgetown. Suddenly, everything made sense. Elena was taking time off to visit our son in Georgetown, just a short drive from where her boss would be for the next 4 days. It seemed absurd, but it was an explanation. Peter made sure I had to work odd hours, so I wouldn't be home to question where my wife was. Are you okay, David? Elena asked as I left the office. I must have looked as stunned as I felt. I tried to pull myself together. What? Oh yeah, I'm fine. Just got something on my mind. Is it something I can help with? No, it's work-related. Nothing for you to worry about. That night, I came home to find Elena packing for her trip. When I walked into the bedroom, she quickly closed her suitcase. Normally, I wouldn't have thought much of it, but today, it took on a new significance. It puzzled me why she needed so many clothes for 4 days with our son and his wife. I commented on the weight of the case as I lifted it off the bed. The next morning, I offered to drive Elena to the station. Oh, there's no need for that, David. I can get a cab. Oh, I insist. Why pay for a taxi when I have the time and a car to drive you? What kind of husband would I be if I didn't make the most of every minute I can spend with my wife? Well, okay then, but you won't be able to go onto the platform. She walked into the other room, taking her phone with her. We shared an uneventful drive to the station. Elena told me how excited she was about visiting Ethan and Sophie. It's a shame you couldn't get time off and come with me, David. There was hardly a tremor in her voice. I had to admit she was good. These last few years, we never seemed to get time off together. Still, that will change soon. What makes you say that? What have you done? I thought I detected real anxiety. Oh, nothing, but Peter promised to look into it when he gets back from Lexington. Hey, it just occurred to me. You'll probably be traveling on the same train. I don't think so, David. Anyway, he'll probably be in first class. She started to sound nervous. At the station, I carried her case to the barrier. I'll call you when I get home from work tonight. No, don't, David. We may go out in the evening. I'll call you. She kissed me goodbye and told me she loved me. I left for work. It was going to be a busy few days. I had no problem wiring the bedroom. Just a single webcam was all I needed. Drilling the small hole through to the study to run the cable was the hardest part. I used that room as my office, So it was a piece of cake to connect the camera to my computer and set it to record every evening. Michael Roberts' office was a different matter. I needed access, but I didn't have a key. Like most places, the cleaners came in early in the morning, so at 5:30 a.m., I arrived for work. I made my way to the management offices just as the cleaner was finishing up. She was about to lock the door when I called out to her. "Don't bother locking the door. I'm here now." "Oh, are you Mr. Donovan? I'm pleased to meet you." It really was that easy. To automatically install updates, college policy required computers to be left running all night. That meant I didn't even have to find a host for the camera. I used a wireless unit and his own desktop to host it, utilizing a spare account from a student who had recently left. I hacked into the college servers. Soon, I had a direct stream to my desktop, which I could activate remotely. From then on, it was just a matter of waiting for their return. On Wednesday morning, I called my son at home. There was no answer. I called his work number. "Hello, Ethan Turner." "Hello, Ethan. How are you?" "Oh, hello, Dad. I'm fine. How about you?" "I'm grand as usual. Missing your mother." Of course. I expected her to answer when I called the house. "Come to think of it, why aren't you there? Surely you could get a few days off for your mother's visit." He sounded embarrassed and didn't really want to talk to me. "Oh, I took Monday and Tuesday off, but I had to come in this morning. My boss is preparing a big presentation, and I've got to make sure he has everything he needs." "Yes, I suppose you do. So where's Sophie? Did she have to work too?" No. She's probably gone shopping in Lexington with Mom." "Ah, yes, Lexington. I might have known she'd end up there." "Look, Dad, I've really got to get this work done. Why don't you call Mom on her mobile?" "Yeah, maybe I will." "Well, I'd better not stop you working, Ethan. Take care." "You too, Dad. Bye." So that was that. He knew and was willing to cover for her. It saddened me to think I'd probably never see or speak to him again. Isabel squeezed my hands. "So you disowned him. I suppose I can understand that. If he knew what she was doing and kept it from you, I don't think it's right, but I can understand." I was getting tense, and Isabel could see it. She held me close, and I was grateful for her support. Looking into those beautiful eyes helped me regain some composure. "So you gathered the evidence and got a divorce. They don't send you to prison for that, do they?" "No, they don't. And if that's all I'd done, I'd be fine. But I'm afraid I went further than that. You probably won't like me much when you find out. I think I'll be the judge of that, David. Now, why don't you tell me the rest of the story before we bring him in to see what he wants?" When Elena came home on Sunday, I did my best to act normally. To be honest, it wasn't difficult. We rarely had any intimacy because she was always too tired. During the week, we hardly saw each other. On Tuesday evening, I checked the live stream from Michael Roberts' office. Sure enough, as soon as most people had left, Elena joined him. They started hugging and kissing, and his hands were on her rear by the time I went to teach my class. During the break, I checked again, just in time to see Elena bend over his desk and having what I can only describe as quality time. By the end of classes, they had left, and the office was dark. The following day, they left on time, so there was nothing to check. However, my bedroom camera picked up some action. It also raised questions. Why did Elena never tell me what she liked? God knows I would have done that for her. I would have been much more creative than Michael Roberts. Thursday, they were at it in the office again. No wonder I wasn't getting any. Even if she had been awake, she would have been too exhausted. I'm ashamed to say I let it go on another week to see if there was a pattern. I didn't just want a divorce. I wanted to hurt them the way they hurt me. I was running on autopilot. The only thing keeping me going to work every day was my anger. People at work noticed how irritable I'd become. Students asked what happened to my famous sense of humor. The lovers, of course, noticed nothing. By the end of the second week, I knew what I was going to do. I knew the following Thursday would be another office tryst, so I put my plan into action. No one was surprised to see cunning David working over the weekend, so no questions were asked when I turned up. I used a library computer and another dormant account to set up a website called officeaffair.net. It had video streaming capabilities, and I linked it to various spicy sites to make it look legitimate. Then I produced posters for the college's notice boards. www.officeaffair.net goes live 7 p.m. on Thursday. Don't miss it. This week only, live content straight from the source. Be among the first to witness this exclusive event. As the notices were removed, I replaced them, making sure I was never caught on camera or by anyone. I even managed to get them up on public notice boards around town. Come Thursday, I was ready. At 6:30, I added the finishing touches to the website and overlaid the video with the message tonight's content comes to you live from Lakeside University. At 6:55 p.m., I checked the live stream. Donovan had started unbuttoning Alina's blouse. I went to my class, which, conveniently, was a computer course. After 5 minutes, it was clear we'd get no work done. First, the whispers started, then they grew louder as the students became more excited, and soon I could hear every word. It's coming from this college. Hey, I recognize him. He's the vice principal. He teaches my calculus class. Who's the cougar he's with? No idea, but she's got a great body. I know her. She's his secretary. Look, she's giving him an Aussie kiss. I'm emailing my friends. They can't miss this. Up to that point, I was ambivalent about the responses. On the one hand, I was glad to expose them for the liars they were. On the other, he was messing around with my wife, the woman I loved for more than 25 years. It was that love that made me forgive her so much in the past, but not this time. My class had already fallen apart, but then came the comment that pushed me over the edge. Oh my God, he's going crazy on her. Donovan, you sly dog. Even when our love life was good, Alina never allowed me to do anything I saw in the video. The red mist descended. My rage took over. Without thinking, I left my class and rushed to the admin block. I couldn't believe how careless they were. They hadn't even locked the door. I charged into the office, grabbed Donovan by the hair, and slammed his head against the edge of the open door. He fell to the floor, and I started kicking him, first in the groin and then, as he rolled over, in the stomach and chest. I was in a fury. My anger was directed at both of them, but 25 years of love and an upbringing that forbade hitting women meant Donovan took the brunt. I was vaguely aware of Alina screaming at me to stop. It was only when she threw herself on top of him that I finally did. I stepped back, shocked at my actions. As I backed away, I stumbled into a chair and collapsed onto it. Alina looked up at me, realized it was safe, and ran into her office, returning with her phone. I heard her speaking. Ambulance, there's been an accident, and a man is badly injured. You'd better call the police too. Anna, the whole world knows it wasn't an accident. You might also want to get dressed. What do you mean the whole world knows? How could they? Your antics tonight have been live-streamed on the internet, and so has my attack on Donovan. In fact, it's still streaming, so get dressed and call the police. Oh, David, you didn't. One look at my face told her I had. She rushed around the office, gathering her clothes and getting dressed. As soon as she was covered, she called the police. She paced back and forth before turning to me. How clear were the pictures, David? Could you see who we were? Well, my class recognized him immediately. They didn't know who you were, but I guess they do now. She covered her face with her hands. Oh God, David, what are we going to do? Well, I'm going to sit here and wait for the police. Perhaps you'd better go to the hospital with your lover here. It wasn't love, David. Just excitement. The thrill of doing things we shouldn't, but just excitement all the same. It doesn't matter anymore, Elena. You wanted or needed someone else, so now you don't have to sneak around. I'm going to be out of circulation for a while. You'll be free to do as you please. She sat with her head in her hands, crying. The paramedics arrived first and started treating Donovan. Elena had to decide whether to go to the hospital with him or not. When the police arrived, I was led away in handcuffs. It took a day for the police to charge me with assault causing grievous bodily harm. Within 2 days, I was in court being formally charged. I opted for the duty solicitor, and he tried to get me released on bail. I instructed him not to, but he felt obligated to try. The magistrate asked if I could post bail. Your Honor, I have little money. My parents are both deceased, and am not in contact with my wife, nor do I wish to be. I can't see how I could raise enough money to post bail. He gave me a searching look. You realize, Mr. Turner, that without someone to post bail, I will have to remand you in custody. Would you like more time to speak to your wife? No, sir. Custody is fine. I was on remand for 3 months. My solicitor visited frequently, trying to convince me to plead not guilty due to temporary insanity. Megan requested visiting orders several times, but I refused. My solicitor informed me that under American law, a wife cannot be forced to testify against her husband, and Elena had refused. Of course, the incident had been broadcast on the internet, so there were plenty of other witnesses. When you're in prison, you find humor in strange things. I received a letter from the college's Human Resources Department informing me that I was the subject of a disciplinary hearing and asking who would represent my interests. I found it amusing that even in the face of overwhelming evidence, they still had to follow procedures. I wrote back, offering no defense. The next communication informed me I had been fired and detailed the appeals process. Unable to visit, Elena resorted to writing letters. My dearest David, I have no idea how to apologize for what I've done to you. Please believe I didn't do it to hurt you, and love had nothing to do with it. I can't explain why I did what I did, but you have always been my one and only love. I know you've been dismissed by the college. They're waiting for Peter to recover before holding his disciplinary hearing. He has several broken ribs and a collapsed lung. The doctors aren't sure if he'll be infertile. I've told him he'll inform the principal that he used his position to force me into it unless he drops the charges and refuses to testify. He'll do it, my love. He'll do anything to get you out of that place so I can start making amends. No matter how long it takes, he'll wait for you, David. And I hope that one day you may forgive me. All my love, Elena. I crumpled the letter and threw it away. A month later, she wrote again. My dearest David, I'm so sorry not just for what I did to you, but because I failed to persuade Peter to drop the charges. He didn't believe I'd go through with it. He was wrong. I went with my union rep to see the principal. I told him Peter pressured me into having an affair and ensured you were always out of the way. I don't know if he believed me, but it didn't matter. The union started a sexual harassment action, and both Peter and I were dismissed. Sadly, this made Peter more determined to ensure you go to prison. I'm so sorry, my love. I tried my best. Your solicitor says you refuse to consider the only defense that might work. Please reconsider, my love. You don't deserve to be in that place. You did what you did because we drove you to it. I will always love you and will wait as long as it takes. All my love, Elena. I have to admit I was surprised they fired Donovan. I expected the management to close ranks around him, but Elena gave them no choice. My trial was almost a non-event. My barrister tried to persuade me to use the temporary insanity plea, but again, I refused. I insisted on pleading guilty. I allowed him to argue extreme provocation as mitigation. My guilty plea meant the prosecution didn't have to present much evidence beyond the extent of Michael Roberts' injuries. They used photographs and medical reports. Donovan was frustrated he wasn't asked to testify. Elena and Ethan were there. She cried most of the time, and he tried to comfort her. The judge listened to my barrister's mitigation before addressing me. Mr. Turner, your counsel has made a compelling case that you acted while the balance of your mind was disturbed. I take it you've been advised to use that as a defense? Yes, sir, I have. Do you wish to change your plea? No, sir. I committed the crime and want the world to know that I planned and executed justice on the man who was with my wife. Am prepared to take my punishment. Very well. David Turner, you have pleaded guilty to the charge of assault causing grievous bodily harm to Mr. Michael Roberts. This is a serious offense, and I could impose a sentence of up to 20 years. However, your counsel has argued extreme provocation, given Mr. Donovan's abuse of power to keep you out of the way while he engaged in an affair with your wife. I find this to be provocation few men could resist. Even so, I would still be obligated to sentence you to 10 years in prison. However, at the time of your arrest, you pleaded guilty, saving the taxpayer considerable expense and sparing your victim the trauma of reliving the attack. Under the guidelines, I can have the sentence. Mr. Turner, I sentence you to 6 years in prison. I looked at the public gallery. Donovan was pumping his fist as if he had won some victory. Elena gasped and buried her head in her hands. As I was led away to the cells, my barrister approached. Well, Mr. Turner, I still think I could have gotten you off, but 6 years is a good result. If you keep your nose clean, You could be out in 2.5 to 3 years. I suppose I should thank you for that, but honestly, I'm not sure I want to get out. What do I have to come out to? My family is destroyed. My career is over. I don't really care when I get out. Why didn't you tell me any of this before, David? It seems like I don't know you at all. Would I have gotten this job if they knew I had a criminal record? Of course not. Most people here wouldn't even talk to me if they knew. Would you have let me get close to you? Aren't you already wondering how you can end things with me? If that's what you think, maybe I should end things. I'm struggling to believe the man I know, the man I love, could do such a thing. The violence was a split-second reaction, which I understand. But the cold-blooded planning of your wife's humiliation, I can't believe that. The man you love wouldn't have done that. I'm the man you know now, or at least I am now. Maybe the judge and the barrister were right. Maybe my mind was disturbed. I couldn't believe Shed ripped my heart out again, but Donovan was the one I wanted. He made me a laughingstock. They even called me Cunning David because I got all the dirty jobs. Some must have known it was so he could keep seeing my wife. In my mind, I was hitting back at him and the college. Let them deny a live broadcast. I thought it even went out through college servers so they couldn't pretend it came from elsewhere. Elena was just collateral damage. To my surprise, Isabel pulled my head down to her chest and held me as I cried, reliving that fateful day. She lifted my head again and looked at me. David, you said you didn't think she could rip your heart out again. Had Elena cheated on you before? I didn't catch her, no. She thinks I don't know, but it wasn't the first time. It happened shortly after we were married. If you didn't catch her, how can you be so sure? I've seen the evidence. Believe me, I'm sure. Wait, David, if you've been in prison, how did you get this job? I mean, you need a clean criminal record. I laughed. If people knew how easy it is to get around those checks, they wouldn't value them so highly. You'd be amazed at how many David Turners there are with clean records. I just became one of them. We sat holding each other. I was relieved she hadn't left me. ID lied my way into everything since I left prison, and I hadn't been able to tell Isabel the truth. Several times ID come close, but each time I held back. I wanted to tell her, and if I could have married her, I would have. But it didn't seem worth the risk of the information getting out. Isabel took her arm from around my shoulders and held both my hands in hers. David, you know we're going to have to speak to the middle-aged man outside. Now that he's found you, the game is up unless we can persuade him to keep quiet. I'm going to call him in, and then you're going to talk to him. Please, David, talk to him. She got up and walked to the door. When she returned, Ethan followed her in. Ethan was a good-looking middle-aged man, standing 6 feet tall with broad shoulders and an athletic build. His light brown hair turned almost blonde in the summer sun. He had a square jaw, a cleft chin, and blue eyes that sparkled when he smiled. One look at Isabel's face told me she was impressed. She looked at me, then at him, and back at me. Your wife must be a good-looking woman, David. He certainly doesn't take after you. I mean, I think you're quite handsome, but Ethan here must be every girl's dream. Ethan smiled at her. He'll settle for being Sophie's dream, thank you. Well, Ethan, you and David must have a lot to talk about. I'm going to make some coffee. Would you like some? Ethan accepted the offer of coffee, and Isabel went to the kitchen, leaving us alone for about a minute. We sat in silence. Ethan fidgeted, unsure how to start. I had no intention of making it easy for him. I just relaxed on the sofa and waited. Eventually, he spoke. Why did you do it, Dad? Come off it, Ethan. You and half the world know why I did it. I'm not talking about that. Why did you disappear? You knew she was waiting for you. When you didn't reply to her letters, she tried to get the governor to keep her informed and tell her when you'd be released. We thought you had another 3 months when the police told us you were out. The prison gave Mom the address of the hostel you went to. I went there, but you were long gone. Why go to a hostel when you could have come home? Why risk going back to prison by just disappearing? I don't know what she's told you, but even from what was reported, you must realize there was no way I could go back. What? Not even for a few weeks. Do you hate Mom so much that you'd rather go to a bail hostel than come home, even if only while you got back on your feet? She and her lover spent 2 years manipulating me. I wasn't going to give her another chance. You should have read her letters. She wanted to make it up to you. She knows how much she hurt you. She wanted to try to put things right. I've had enough. Ethan, you didn't search for me just to ask why I didn't go home. What do you want from me? What happens if you don't get it? Are you going to tell the police where I am so they can put me back in prison? I want you to come back and talk to her. She's sick, Dad. Really sick. She was okay when she thought you'd come back. But when you disappeared, she started drinking. Now she has cirrhosis of the liver and needs a transplant. They won't do it while she's still drinking. I hate what she did to you, but she's my mom. I can't watch her kill herself. I need you to forgive her. Tell her to stop drinking. Or what? Ethan, what if I don't go with you? Do I need to move on before the police come after me for breaking my parole? She might be your only mom, but to me, she's already dead. Or nothing, Dad. I don't want you back in prison, and I don't think the police care. When I asked them to help me find you, they said they'd find you when you committed another crime. Isabel returned with the coffee. Ethan seems to be talking sense, David. You need closure, and if that helps your wife, then so much the better. I know you don't wish her harm. How do you know? Because you beat him to a pulp but never laid a finger on her. I sat for a moment. ID never thought about it that way, but she was right. Listen, Ethan, the only reason I didn't beat her was because she's a woman. It wasn't out of love for her, but respect for my mother, who taught me never to hit a woman. I wouldn't have dreamed of hurting Elena despite her betrayal. What harm can it do to talk to her, David? Now it was 2 against 1, and I was losing. Okay, we'll go talk to her, but don't expect anything to change. She'll have to accept that I'm not coming back. We'll talk to her on one condition, I said, turning to Ethan. You stop calling me Dad. He shook his head. One mistake 2.5 years ago, and he disowns me. What the hell can I do? Give him time, Ethan. I'm sure he'll come around. You don't know him. I let him down. I know I did. And now he'll never forgive me or Mom. We left the next morning, all 3 of us. Ethan didn't want Isabel to come because he didn't want Elena to know ID found someone else. I insisted she come with us. I wanted everything out in the open. He tried to make conversation during the drive, but it was an uphill battle. I wasn't intentionally ignoring him. My mind was too preoccupied. I kept replaying those days leading up to the assault on Donovan. It felt strange pulling into the driveway of my old house. If I didn't know better, I'd have sworn it was empty. The grass needed cutting. The curtains hung loosely, and the windows were filthy. Ethan had his own key and let us in through the front door. I had never seen my house in such a mess. He led us into the living room and asked us to sit. He went upstairs to fetch Elena. It took him a while to return with her. When Elena entered, I barely recognized her. Her face was gaunt. Her skin had a yellowish hue, and she had lost a lot of weight. The dress she wore hung on her frame. When she saw me, she tried to smile and held her arms out. David, you've come home. No, I've just come to talk. I'm not coming home. Never. Isabel squeezed my hand and looked at me lovingly, making Elena look uncomfortable. Ethan helped her to a seat. I'd like to say you're looking well, Elena, but that wouldn't be true. Same old David. Can't lie to save your life. They told me that's why you ended up in prison. Water under the bridge, Elena. All done with now. Ethan says you want to talk to me, so why not just say what you have to say? Now that you're finally here, I don't know where to start. Did you read any of my letters? Only the 2 you sent while I was on remand. I didn't open the rest. Do you hate me that much, David? You didn't have to reply, but if I could just believe you read them, I'd have felt better. Hate had nothing to do with it, Elena. Quite the opposite. I loved you so much that the only way I could deal with what we did to each other was to cut that part out of my life. I never wanted to think about it again. Do you want to know why I didn't read your letters? In prison, a man who weeps in his cell might as well be dead. So that's it, then. David? You've cut me out of your life with no chance of forgiveness? I don't know, Elena. I don't have feelings for you. So maybe I've already forgiven you. I hate what you did just as much as I hate what I did. You can say that what I did to you was cruel and heartless, but I just gave back what you gave me. I do feel I should have just divorced you. Come to think of it, I should have divorced you the first time. Elena's mouth fell open. She pulled her hands up to her face and cried. As she regained control, she looked at me through red eyes. You've known all these years and said nothing. Why? It was over when I found out, and it gave you the child I seemed unable to provide. I pulled a worn envelope from my pocket and handed it to Ethan. That's why you shouldn't call me Dad. I'm not your father. Ethan looked at the letter as he took it from the envelope. I don't understand. What is this? It's the results of a DNA paternity test. You were the subject, and as you can see, we're not related. The only sound in the room was Elena sobbing. Isabel looked from Ethan to Elena, unsure who to comfort first. In the end, she chose Elena. Ethan was in shock. I don't understand. If you're not my father, then who is? I think it was a man named Donald Wilson. He and your mother were very friendly for a while. Too friendly for my liking. She assured me there was nothing to it. They seemed to fall out around the time your mom got pregnant. 6 months after you were born, he died in a car accident. So how long have you known? According to the date, I was 2 when this test was done. I suspected within a couple of months of your birth. Neither of us had blue eyes, and we both have dark hair. When your eyes didn't turn brown or even green, I realized you probably weren't mine. It ate away at me. I had to know. When paternity tests became affordable, I had you tested. For all those years, you knew and said nothing. Why? I wanted to leave, but the night I was going to finally go, you held my finger and spoke your first words. I realized leaving would take away a whole life from you. So I swallowed my pride and my anger just so you could have a life. I had already emotionally distanced myself from your mother. So just like that, you decided to raise another man's child and kept it a secret for 25 years. Didn't I have a right to know? Let me ask you something, Ethan. In the first 20 years, did you ever feel unwanted or unloved? Right up until you decided to collude with your mother to deceive me, did you ever feel less than my own son? You know I didn't. For what it's worth, I didn't know Mom was cheating. She told me she was arranging a surprise for you, and not to tell you about her visit. Whatever. It's all done now. The way I see it, Ethan, your mother's still your mother. Your father's dead, and you've had a stepfather for 25 years. Unless you're saying I shouldn't have given you that, get off your high horse and accept it. Isabel interrupted, trying to calm things down. David, I think we could all use a cup of tea. Why don't we go make one while Ethan and Elena process the bomb you just dropped? I took her to the kitchen. We were confronted with a scene I never thought I'd see. The sink was full of dishes, the countertops were dirty, and empty bottles were scattered around. Isabel and I looked at each other. Sorry, Isabel. Looks like cleaning up is the first priority. She hugged me tightly. I said yesterday you weren't the man I knew. I take that back. Any man who's been through what you have for all those years was bound to go a little crazy. You really should have gone for temporary insanity. She kissed me. Right, David, let's get started. We cleared the bottles and cleaned the countertops before tackling the dishes. An hour later, we returned with tea. Ethan and Elena sat together on the sofa, arms around each other. Isabel served tea to Elena, who eyed her carefully. Are you his girlfriend? Take care of him. He needs a good woman. I will if he lets me. My nervousness had made me forget the introductions. I introduced Isabel as my friend. I think she's more than that, David. You look at her the way you used to look at me before I ruined everything. You're right, Elena. She is more than a friend. She's the best thing to happen to me in years. But we're not here to discuss Isabel and me, are we? You wanted to talk to me. So what did you want to say? We sat in silence, sipping our tea. Elena was trying to gather her thoughts, ready to say what she needed to get off her chest. She took a deep breath, looked me in the eye, and spoke. David, Ethan has made me realize there's no chance of you coming back home. It's not my home anymore, Elena. Please don't interrupt, David. This is hard enough. I want to explain as much as I understand myself. She paused and then began again. It's not enough, but I'm sorry for what I did to you. I've tried to understand why because I really do love you. I know that must be hard to believe. You see, I've always been able to compartmentalize my life, almost as if I had more than one life. In the compartment with Michael Roberts, you existed only as a sort of abstract concept, a notional husband. In your compartment, he was just a faceless person, your boss. When I was with him, I'm sorry to say I never thought of you. When you and I were together, I never thought about him. Of course, there was a sort of in-between time when I balanced the two, and that was the only time I felt guilty about what I did. I felt guilty, David. Really, I did. But it was such a thrill. The man had power over both of us. They say power is an aphrodisiac, and it is. He had the power to make me available by ensuring you were always out of the way. The fact that he wanted me was enough. I said he used his position to force me into it, but he didn't have to force me. I just said that to try to get him to drop the charges. So there was no love. None at all, David. It was just excitement and the thrill of doing things I shouldn't with a man in power. So why did you lie on top of him to protect him from me? That was to protect you from yourself. I've never seen you like that. I thought you were going to kill him. I didn't know you were streaming it on the internet. I thought if he wasn't too badly hurt, we could say he had an accident. You took a huge risk. I might have hurt you too. No, you couldn't do that, David. Not you. No matter what state you were in, you wouldn't hurt me. Donovan would never have said it was an accident if I was the only witness. He wouldn't have had much choice. But you had to broadcast it. Why? David, did you hate me that much? I realized most of the college management must have known what was happening. I wanted to make sure Donovan and the rest couldn't wriggle out of it, so I made sure there were plenty of witnesses. They couldn't deny it happened once the video went out. I wasn't aiming to hurt you, but at the time, I didn't care if I did. I didn't intend to attack him. I just lost it. Well, if you wanted to hurt the college management, you succeeded. Even the head of IT services was fired. The college was taken over by another institution. You should have read my letters, David. You destroyed them. I couldn't get a job either. I had to take temp work just to make ends meet. Suddenly, Ethan joined the conversation. Maybe Dad wouldn't have lost it if it was the first time you betrayed him, but you already did when you were with my biological father. Elena snapped back with surprising force. Don't you ever call that man your father. He was just a coward who was happy to have his fun, but ran when he found out I was pregnant. Things were tense between your dad and me at the time because we couldn't have children. When I met Donald, I was vulnerable. He offered me sympathy, made me think David didn't really want kids. He gradually worked his way into my life. I thought I loved Donald, and I thought he loved me, but I was wrong. When I became pregnant, I thought he'd be happy and leave his wife. But he wanted me to pass you off as David's and carry on as before. I realized he didn't love me, I was just a fling. I told him I never wanted to see him again, and I never did. I'm glad he died because then he could never claim you as his. When I told your dad, David, your real Dada was overjoyed and couldn't wait to be a father. I had no idea he knew. Ethan was left speechless, and I felt a pang of sympathy, but I still found it hard to forgive him, not for being someone else's son, but for deceiving me with his mother. Emotions were running high, and it was getting too much for me. I had to end it. So, Elena, you wanted to see me, and now you have. Where do we go from here? You must realize there's no way back for us. I suppose you're right, David. I had hoped I could make it up to you, but I see that's impossible. I wonder, could we possibly be friends? I don't have many drunks as friends. They'll clean up, David. I will. I've got a place in a residential program to get sober. If I stay off alcohol for 6 months, they'll consider me for a liver transplant. Do you think you'll manage it? I'll try, David. Especially if we can be friends. I know you don't feel you can visit me, but can I write to you? Will you read my letters? I can't promise anything. We wrapped things up, and I got back in the car for the long drive home. At first, it was a quiet ride. Isabel squeezed my leg or pressed her face to my arm repeatedly. When we pulled into a service station, we started to chat. It was small talk at first, but when we sat down to eat, Isabel got to the point. Do I know everything now, David? Or is there more? Only what happened in prison. I haven't told anyone, and I probably never will. She squeezed my hand. Was it really that awful? I did things I'm proud of, but also things I'd never normally dream of. But my life was better than many others. Do you think you'll ever be friends with Elena? I don't know. I'll try. That's all I can say. What about Ethan? You dropped quite a bombshell on him today. The ball's in his court now that he knows the truth. It's up to him to decide what he wants to do. Isabel took both of my hands in hers. You know you made me very proud today, right? Well, I do now. I smiled at her. Do I get a reward? There's a very good chance, she grinned. We finished our meal and walked back to the car, arms around each other. I was indeed rewarded that night, and for many nights after. Alina's first letter arrived a week after she entered rehab. She found it hard to live without alcohol but was determined to succeed. She offered some words of apology but made no further attempts to persuade me to return. I was impressed and wrote back, offering encouragement. For 3 months, we exchanged letters, each one more cordial than the last. I began to believe we could be friends. She left rehab, gained some weight, and found a job. She still had health issues and remained on the transplant list. I was hopeful for her recovery. It came as a surprise when the letters stopped. Things seemed to be going well, then she didn't reply. I was surprised by how much it affected me. I felt let down again. Isabel tried to keep my spirits up, telling me there was probably a good reason and she'd be back in touch. The first snow of winter fell on December 1st. By the weekend, 6 inches of snow covered the landscape. The staff cleared the paths, but the grass and surrounding scenery looked like something out of a Christmas card. I had finished my Saturday morning classes and was walking out into the courtyard when I was taken by surprise. Ethan was leaning against the arch and greeted me as I came out of the lab. "Well, Dad, even in winter, it's still beautiful here. One hell of a place to hide out." "Ethan, you know the whole story now, so you know we're not related." "Look, I know what you said, but Mom was right. It doesn't matter whose DNA did the job. You're the only father I've ever known, and you did a damn good job. So no matter what you say, they'll always think of you as my dad, and I'm sorry I let you down." I put my arm around his shoulders. "For what it's worth, you're still the best son I've ever had." We started walking down the path toward the cloisters. "Elena hasn't written in a while. How is she?" Ethan stopped and put his hand on my arm. "She's dead. She died last Friday of multiple organ failure. They thought it was a urinary tract infection, but then her kidneys failed. While they tried to stimulate them, her heart stopped. She signed a do not resuscitate order. She couldn't face a life on dialysis, and they wouldn't do her liver unless they found a kidney too." I stopped and looked at him. I saw tears in his eyes as I felt them welling up in mine. There were no barriers between us now. We threw our arms around each other and wept. We stood for several minutes, locked in an embrace, our bodies shaking as we sobbed. I fought back the tears as I pulled away and dried my eyes with a tissue. Why didn't she tell me? She didn't have to die alone. She wasn't alone, Dad. I was with her. So why didn't you call me? She knew I forgave her. I would have come if you'd called. That's why she wouldn't let me tell you. The reason the letters stopped is because someone told the paper she was writing to you. A reporter visited her. With the anniversary of the event approaching, he wanted to find you. Mom was determined not to cause you any more trouble. She knew you couldn't teach with a criminal record, so either the school hadn't checked, or you obtained one by fraud. If that got out, you'd be finished again. She wouldn't let it happen and told me not to contact you. After all this time, they're still stirring things up. Are you sure? Oh yes, I'm sure. The slimy reporter said he wanted to tell your side of the story. Mom told me it would only bring you more misery. I know it's hard to believe after what she did, but she really did love you. You're right. It is hard, but I'm grateful for yours and her consideration. I did love her. After all these years, I can't just turn that off. When's the funeral? Tuesday. But don't think of coming. You can't take the risk. If you're not there, the reporter may give up. I put my arm around his shoulders as we walked back toward my flat. Come on, son. Let's see if Isabel can rustle up some lunch for you. I think we're ahead of you there, Dad. Sophie and I arrived around 10. She and Isabel have been working on lunch for a while. They went shopping around 10:30. We reached my front door, and I led us into an empty flat. I grabbed a beer for Ethan and myself. We sat on the sofa, drinking while waiting for the girls to return. So, Dad, what happens now? Mom was the only link between us, and now she's gone. What happens now? Will I ever see you again? Don't get me wrong, Ethan. Isabel didn't think Elena was going to die, but she asked me a similar question on our way back from our visit. We may not share DNA, but I always thought of you as my son and loved you as my own. As I said before, all those years of love can't be turned off, but it has to be your decision. So the question is, Ethan, what do you want to happen? He sipped his beer. I don't want anything to change. I want Mom's death to change nothing. Like she said, you're my real father. They'll always think of you as my dad, and I want you to always think of me as your son. If that's what you want, then that's how it'll be, I said, putting my arm around him. We struggled to keep the tears from our eyes as we embraced. We were still locked in an embrace when the door opened and Isabel walked in. Well, it looks like you boys have come to your senses. Ethan and I parted. I got up to help with the groceries. Sophie followed Isabel into the flat. She saw me, screamed, and ran toward me. Oh, David, it's so good to see you. It's been a long time. Far too long. She stepped back and looked me over. You're looking well. This place must agree with you. I looked her over. My son had good taste. She had shoulder-length honey blonde hair, blue eyes, full lips, and high cheekbones. Her normally trim figure now had a noticeable bulge in front. I see you've noticed. David Jr., isn't it great? I smiled. David Jr.? Are you serious? If you don't mind, Ethan wanted it, and I agree. We love you, David. Ethan was heartbroken about what happened to you. He loved Elena too, so it tore him apart. As soon as we found out we were having a boy, Ethan wanted to name him after you. Please say it's okay. What could I say? It was fine by me. The three of us chatted while Isabel prepared lunch. The atmosphere at the table was bittersweet. The joy of our reunion was tempered by the sorrow of Elena's passing. I found it hard not to attend her funeral, but her reasons were sound. For the first time since that fateful night, I realized I had forgiven her. I still didn't understand why she did it, but I had to accept that in some way, she loved me. Perhaps if I didn't attend the funeral, the press would leave me alone. Isabel seemed to think so because she started making Christmas plans. Ethan, I'm sorry, but I hope David would spend Christmas with me and my daughters. What I'd like is to come to you for New Year. It would be a fresh start for all of us. Sophie was overjoyed. Isabel, I think that's a great idea. We can have my parents for Christmas and then you and David for New Year. Ethan moved on to practical matters. The house is yours now. You need to think about what you'll do with it. And then there's the money. Money? What money? I thought she was broke. The union launched a sexual harassment case against the college. They settled out of court for $50,000. She wouldn't touch the money because she knew it was a lie, but once she started the case, she couldn't back down. She intended to give you the money when you got out to help you get back on your feet. I can't deal with that now, Ethan. We'll have to think about it. We spent Christmas with Isabel's daughters, and I was made very welcome. Both were pleased their mother had found someone. We got to Georgetown late New Year's Eve morning. I talked to Ethan about the house and money. We agreed he'd handle renting the house. I rented a short-term flat, just long enough to get a utility bill so I could set up a bank account. Once the account was set up, I gave up the flat and did everything online. Ethan said he'd have the solicitor transfer the funds to my new account. You know, Ethan, like your mother, I don't want the money. It's tainted. Well, someone has to have it, Dad, unless you want the bankers to take it. Isabel and I have talked. We want you to set up a trust fund for David Jr. and any other children you might have. When it's set up, we'll transfer the funds. Something good has to come out of that mess. If that's what you want, Dad, we'll do it. Pay the income from the house into the new account, and I can withdraw it in cash. If you're careful, that should keep your location secure. That night, we all went out to a New Year's party. Around midnight, we had the countdown and toasted the new year. When the cheering died down, I looked at my little group and filled their glasses before proposing another toast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you new beginnings. We raised our glasses. As we lowered them, I walked over and knelt on one knee in front of Isabel. Isabel Hill, will you do me the honor of becoming my wife? She threw her arms around my neck. Oh yes, David. Yes, yes, yes. I slipped the engagement ring onto her finger. It was a perfect fit, just like us. As she admired the small diamond, I stood up. I had the best feeling I'd had in years. It truly was a new beginning. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the twists and turns in this story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. What would you have done if you were in David's shoes? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video.
My name is Chris Matthews, and at 32, I was a kind of efficiency consultant and troubleshooter for one of the largest independent oil companies in central Oklahoma. I worked in Norman, Oklahoma, although I traveled all over the country and sometimes internationally for my boss. He hired me straight out of college, and I quickly became a jack of all trades for him and his company. After graduating from high school, I had to work full-time to support my family. My family consisted of my mom, my sister Lily, and me. My mom, a single mother, raised us on her own after my alcoholic father walked out a month after Lily was born. I was 8 at the time. We never heard from him again. Despite the hardships, Mom always managed to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table, though there was never much extra. I started working part-time at 16 and haven't stopped working since. Right now, though, I'm not working, but we'll get to that later. At 61 and around 190 pounds, I was big for my age at 16. If I kept my voice low, I could pass for 18, which is how I got my first job in the oil fields. I suspect my first boss, Tom, knew I wasn't 18, but after I explained my family situation, he hired me anyway. He didn't let me work directly on the rig, but there was plenty to keep me busy. I did most of the grunt work around the drilling site, rolling drill pipe into place, hauling bags of drilling mud to the mixer, ensuring there was water in the basins, and whatever else needed doing. I worked part-time on the evening shift from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m., so I could attend school during the day. Once I finished school, I went to work full-time as a roughneck on the rig floor. By then, I had grown to 62 and added about 40 pounds, making me more than capable of handling the rig work. After 2 years as a roughneck, a family friend named Bill decided I should become a driller. The pay was better, and it wasn't as hard on the body as being a roughneck. You could only work so many years as a roughneck before the back-breaking labor took its toll. Bill was about 55 and had been a driller for 30 years. His face was lined from years in the weather, and his hands were calloused from decades of hard labor. He walked with a stoop and a limp from an accident on a rig 20 years ago. He looked like he had been through the ringer. I was working the day shift and would stay late to learn from Bill. After nearly a year of working under him, I got my first job as a driller. The hardest part about being a driller, once you know the technical aspects, is controlling your crew. Roughnecks are an independent bunch, and you have to earn their respect before they'll work hard for you. My first time out as a driller, I had an older crew, and I was the youngest at 23. Being a new driller, I was assigned the night shift from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. One of the crew members, Sam, a veteran roughneck at 35, wasn't going to tolerate a young punk as his boss. The first time he challenged me, I told him to get to work or get off the rig. Words and threats were exchanged, and the rest of the crew had to pull us apart. I held my own, but if it had gone on longer, I might have been in trouble. The tool pusher, who was the overall boss on the rig, sent Sam home and docked his pay for fighting. Normally, fighting on a rig would get you fired, but since drillers for the night shift were hard to find, no one got fired. The next night, I waited for Sam before the shift began. As he got out of his truck, I told him we had unfinished business and needed to settle it before starting the shift. We went behind the tool trailer, and after a brief exchange, Sam knocked me down 3 times, but I got up each time and went at him again. Finally, he held up his hands and said, "I've had enough. I don't want to break my hands and be unable to work. You and me, Chris, let's get to work." I had earned the crew's respect by standing up to Sam, and I never had any more trouble from them. Word spread, and I never had a problem with any other crew. Eventually, Sam and I became friends, and he would often request to work on my crew. After 2 years as a driller, I realized there had to be more to life than oil rigs. The central Oklahoma weather baked you in the summer and froze you in the winter. Add in thunderstorms and lightning strikes, and the job was anything but easy. The flat plains of central Oklahoma offered no respite from the elements. The storms and winds rolled for miles with no hills or trees to slow them down. Working on an oil rig was dangerous, and I didn't want to end up like Bill Bent, broken and gnarled from years of hard labor. I decided to work smarter, not harder. I took jobs that allowed me to work the night shift from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. so I could attend college during the day. I didn't take summers off and graduated in 3 years with dual degrees, one in accounting and business management, and the other in computer science. The day after graduation, I began looking for a job where I could use my new degrees and get off the oil rigs. That's when I met David Ray Evans and the Evans Oil Company. David Ray had an ad in the local paper for a full-charge accountant, so I applied. He called me and we met at his office on a Thursday afternoon at 3 p.m., giving me time to get some sleep before my night shift on the rig. I hadn't quit my job as a driller yet, and wouldn't until I had something else lined up. I handed David Ray my resume, and we discussed my qualifications for about 30 minutes, then spent another hour talking about my rig experience and the oil business. He asked, "Why do you want to quit working on the rigs? Drillers make good money." "Yeah, they do," I replied, "but it's hard on the body. Someday I hope to have a family, and I want to be able to play with my kids and maybe grandkids. I don't want to end up like Bill, beat up from years on the rigs." David Ray knew Bill and still hired him as a driller occasionally. "Let me think on this for a day or two, and I'll call you and let you know, Chris," he said, ending our interview. I found out later that he called Bill, Sam, and my mom to find out what kind of man I was. I thanked him for his time and went home to get some rest before my shift. It was an interesting meeting, and I enjoyed talking to David Ray, but I didn't think I would get the job. His secretary, Karen, mentioned that I was the youngest applicant, and she seemed surprised that a big, strapping roughneck like me would apply for this position. 8 days later, I got a call from Evans Oil asking me to meet with David Ray again. This time it was a Friday morning around 10 a.m., and as I walked into the office, Karen handed me a cup of coffee and led me into David Ray's office. He was on the phone and motioned for me to take a seat. After he hung up, he smiled and said, "I'm offering you the job as accountant if you still want it, Chris. Here's the salary I'm willing to start you at." He slid a folded piece of paper across the desk to me. The offer was about 15 more than I was making as a driller, and I didn't have to work on a rig anymore. "Sounds good, Mr. Evans. I accept the job and thank you," I responded. "How soon can you start?" "Probably in 10 days or so, sir. I have to finish drilling this well and then I'm free." "Couldn't they get someone else to work in your place?" David Ray asked, appraising me. "Yeah, they could, but it would slow them down until they found someone. Besides, I gave my word when I took the driller's job that I would finish the well." "I don't like to go back on my word, Mr. Evans. I need you to start by midweek, or I'll have to find someone else, Chris," David Ray said, dashing my hopes. After a brief hesitation, I stood up to leave. "Thanks for the offer, Mr. Evans, but I guess you better find someone else." I gave them my word, and I aim to keep it. "Thanks again for the offer. Call me if you need a driller for that new well. See you sometime." David Ray started laughing. "Sit down, Chris. You've got the job. I just wanted to see if you were a man of your word, and you've proven you are. You're the kind of man I want working for me. So go finish your well, and then come to the office and we'll put you to work." He picked up the phone and started making a call. I left his office and felt like I was walking on air all the way out to my truck. First time out, and I found a way to get off that damn oil rig. I was thrilled and could hardly wait to start with Evans Oil Company. As I got back to my place, my cell phone rang, and when I answered, it was my current boss. He offered me a day shift at the next well with a pay increase. "I can't, Mr. Thompson. I'm starting a new job right after I get this well to depth. I was just coming into my own as a driller and was being offered really good rigs and wells, but I wanted out of the oil fields." He asked where I was going to work and why. After I told him, he said, "Well, David Ray is a good man, and I can understand you wanting to better yourself. Good luck to you, Chris. If you ever decide to come back to drilling, give me first call, will you?" We had to change a drill bit that night, which put us a little behind. To change the bit, we had to pull out over 9,500 feet of drill pipe, replace the bit, and put the same amount of pipe back into the drill hole. So it was 12 days before I could report to Evans Oil. The well came in on the day shift, but I worked my shift helping to dismantle the rig so it could be moved to the next site. I finished my shift at 6 a.m., went home, got a bite to eat, cleaned up, and reported to David Ray's office at 8 a.m. He had heard that the well made depth last night and grinned at me when I walked in. David Ray told me to go home, get a day's rest, and be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I want you bright-eyed and ready when you start work for me, Chris. The next morning, I made my first step out of working in the oil fields. I found that I had 3 clerks and another accountant working for me. Around noon, David Ray took me to lunch and explained some things to me. First thing, my name is David Ray. Mr. Evans is my dad. Next, I had several people to choose from for this job, most with more experience than you. Do you know why I hired you instead of any of the others? By now, I had an idea and answered with, I guess because I'm so good-looking and you wanted to improve the office decor. He almost fell out of his chair laughing. Yeah, that's one reason, but the real reason I hired you is that you know the oil business from the field side. You've worked on rigs and know what it takes to bring in a well. It's not just numbers, and you know that. I can trust you to look at the numbers and reports and know if the well is worth the expenditure or if we should cap it and move on. You'll know if a tool pusher or driller is trying to pull one over on me or if they're reporting truthfully. It was your field experience on the rigs that made the difference. David Ray told me that I would be more than an accountant. He wanted me to be a troubleshooter and field expert. He wanted me to meet with the geologists, the drillers, and the crews. I was to hire the best roughnecks, drillers, and tool pushers for his wells, pay them above the going rate, and keep them satisfied, but make sure they produced. I was to be his jack of all trades and do what I thought best to keep the bottom line in the black. 6 months into my job, David Ray gave me a raise. The raise enabled me to send more money home to my mom and sister. I had saved the company a lot by catching and correcting the phony reports one crew was submitting. Sam and his crew had just finished another well, so I fired that crew and hired Sam. Those guys managed to bring the well in under budget. I got a raise, Sam and his boys got a big bonus, and Evans Oil made money a win-win situation. I had more time to socialize now with a daytime job and started to hang out on the weekends at a couple of local roadhouses. Now that I had an office-type job, I could dress better. No more dirty jeans, steel-toed boots, and shirts. I wore slacks or dress jeans, nice shirts, and polished cowboy boots. I looked pretty sharp, if I do say so myself. Then I made a mistake. I fell for a girl named Melissa. She was a tall, striking woman I met at the Roundup, a dance hall in Norman. She was about 510 and fit my large frame perfectly when we danced. She had long auburn hair and bright green eyes. One look, and I was hooked, even if it wasn't love. We hit it off right from the start and quickly became an item. She was always up for a good time and loved to party late into the night. Melissa lived off a small trust fund from her grandparents and didn't have to work, so she had plenty of time to recover from her nights out. We dated off and on for about a year. I say off and on because we had a few bumps in the road. I had to travel for work every 4 or 5 weeks to visit drilling rigs, solve problems, or just check things out. My trips usually lasted 3 or 4 days. Even though I was gone, Melissa kept going out to the Roundup and other dance halls. I wasn't thrilled about it, but I didn't make an issue of it until the night I found her cuddled up with some guy at the Roundup. It was the classic story. I finished my trip early and thought I'd surprise her. When she wasn't at her place, I figured she was out dancing. If I found her at one of the honky-tonks, I was going to be upset. We had just had a serious talk about her going out while I was gone. She was certainly surprised when I walked up to the booth where she and this guy were snuggling. His hand was high up on her side, just below her breast, and she had her eyes closed. She opened them as I slid into the booth across from them. "Oh my God," she said. The guy looked to be about 27, like Melissa. She pushed him away and said to me, "Hi, honey. I thought you were still on your trip. Obviously, you thought I was still gone, or you wouldn't be here with this guy, would you?" He bristled at that. "Oh, no, I'm not here with Mike. He and my cousin Sarah are dating, and I just ran into him. You could have fooled me. From that hug, I thought you two were together for the evening, honey. He came over to say hello, and it was just a hug among friends. Mike, this is my boyfriend, Chris Matthews. Chris, this is Mike Taylor." Mike reached out to shake hands, though he seemed a little nervous. I took his hand and gave him a very firm handshake. His hand was soft, not used to hard work. He apparently wasn't a real cowboy. If he threw a rope with those hands, the skin would have been ripped off. Mike was more of a weekend cowboy, likely never having seen a ranch in his life. He gave a little moan from the pressure of my handshake, and I let him go. Does a friendly hug include Mike here groping you? If I had come in a few minutes earlier, would I have seen a friendly kiss too? And by the way, Mike, that's ex-boyfriend. No, Chris, I swear nothing was going on. We danced a few times, that's all. I thought you said he just came over to say hello, and now you're saying you danced. Which is it? I wasn't born yesterday, Melissa. I know exactly what's going on here. Melissa and I had been dating for about 3 months when I gave her the only thing I ever got from my Dada gold nugget necklace he won in a poker game before he left. He had asked me several times to give it back, probably to sell it for booze. Even at 8, I wasn't stupid, so I told him I lost it. That got me a backhand across the face, but at least I still had the nugget. That necklace was like a pre-engagement ring for Melissa. She was leaning across the table, trying to take my hand, but I reached over and pulled the necklace off her. If she wanted to play around, I wasn't going to let her do it with my brand on her. When I grabbed it, she was shocked, and Mike decided to intervene. He grabbed my arm to stop me. Son, you really don't want to get involved in this. She's not worth going to the hospital for, I warned him. The memory of the firm handshake and the look in my eyes must have convinced him. He let go of my arm and sat back down. I'm sure you can get a ride home, Melissa. I won't be waiting for you. Goodbye, both of you. About 3 blocks from the bar, my cell phone started ringing. It was Melissa, and I thought about ignoring it, but decided to get it over with. Hello, Melissa. What do you want? Honey, come back and get me so we can talk. I came with Donna, and she hooked up with some guy and left me. I don't have a ride. Talking's over, girl. You were going to ride with Mike tonight. Just have him take you home first. Don't call me again. We're done, Melissa. Of course, we did talk again, and being young and foolish, I gave her another chance. I didn't really believe the excuses she gave me about that night, but I cared for her and didn't want to break up. That was the first time. The same thing happened when I took another trip about 6 months later. I didn't catch her with anyone, but friends told me she had been out dancing every night I was gone. There's an old saying that those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it, and that's what happened to me. Of course, hindsight is 20/20, and I should have walked away after the first incident with Mike, but I didn't learn from history, and I repeated it. After our last fight about her going out, she said, if we were married, I wouldn't have to go out. We'd have a home, and I'd wait for you there. It was either sound logic or complete nonsense, but it worked. We got engaged and then quickly married. Our wedding was small, but the reception was large and held at the Roundup of all places, since that's where we met. We went to Denver for our honeymoon and stayed in a hotel near the Cherry Creek area. We didn't see much of Cherry Creek, we were too busy exploring each other. Neither of us were virgins, but we needed to figure out how we fit together and what we each liked. We had a good time. I went back to work, and luckily there was no need for travel for a couple of months. Then I had to make a trip to Wyoming for 6 days. When I got back, Melissa tried to make up for lost time on my first night home. The next morning at breakfast, I asked what she had done while I was gone. I wasn't thrilled to hear she had gone out dancing 3 of the 6 nights I was away, starting with the first night. This led to our first fight as a married couple. She still didn't understand why I didn't want her out dancing with other men while I was gone. You never minded me dancing when we go out together. You even let me dance with other guys. Why is it a problem if I go when you're gone? Remember the issues we had before we got married because of your dancing when I wasn't with you? You're married now, and you shouldn't be out dancing without your husband. When I'm with you, I can look out for you. I don't want you going out dancing by yourself when I'm gone. That seemed to put an end to her nights out when I was away. For the next 18 months, my business trips were few and far between. Most of the trips I had to take, Melissa was able to join me. We treated them like mini vacations or mini honeymoons. Things were good. Our second anniversary was approaching, and of course, things were going too smoothly. I had to go to Canada for 6 days, which meant our celebration plans were put off until I returned. Melissa was not happy. She couldn't go on this trip because I would be in an oil camp deep in the woods with no town or other women for miles. Melissa didn't understand that I couldn't tell my boss I wouldn't go. She had never worked a day in her life and didn't grasp the responsibilities of a job. This was only our second real argument, but it was a big one. We both calmed down and spent our last few nights before my trip trying to love each other as much as possible. She told me she decided to go visit her parents, who were camping in their RV at Lake Powell near Page, Arizona, while I was gone. Melissa said she'd call me because she didn't want her phone ringing to disrupt her father's fishing. She did call me the first night I was there to make sure I arrived safely. The call was mostly about how much we missed each other and how we couldn't wait for me to come home. She called every day I was gone, always during the daytime. When I got home, we were all over each other. She told me she had spent the time with her parents at the lake. Our life got back to normal, and I took Melissa dancing every weekend. I would have preferred to stay home sometimes, but since she had stopped going out alone, I thought it was only fair to let her enjoy herself. We would go to one of the dance halls in Norman, and Melissa never missed a dance all evening. If I got tired, she'd dance with her girlfriends and occasionally with a guy we both knew. She even danced with my old crewmate Bill a few times. If a stranger asked her to dance, she would refuse, saying she was a married woman. Her answer made me feel secure. Sure, I was secure until everything fell apart. I ran into Sam outside our office one morning about 2 months after I returned from Canada. He had been in to see David Ray about a job on a new well that was starting in a month. We walked over to his truck to share a couple of beers and talk for a few minutes. He seemed nervous and started to say something a couple of times, but would stop and then talk about something else. Finally, I told him to spit it out. "Chris, I've got something to tell you, and you're not going to like it. Just don't shoot the messenger, okay?" I nodded for him to continue. "I know you don't like Melissa going out to the clubs without you, but when you were in Canada, she was at the roundup every night." Before he could finish, I hit him. He fell back against his truck, and I yelled, "You're a lying piece of trash!" I started for him again. Sam wrapped both arms around me and held me so I couldn't move. "We're not doing this, Chris. I'm not lying. Others saw her too. I didn't have the guts to tell you before, but it kept eating at me, and I thought you should know." I calmed down and apologized for hitting him. It was hard to believe that Melissa would go out like that when she knew how I felt about it and had agreed not to do it anymore after our last talk. "That's not the worst of it, buddy," Sam continued. 3 different nights she went outside with a guy and was gone for about 45 minutes. Now I was really mad. Not only was she going out alone where no married woman should be, but going outside with a man for 45 minutes didn't look good. Maybe they were just getting some fresh air, but not for 45 minutes. Her actions wouldn't pass the husband test. "Different guy each time," Sam said. I didn't want to believe she was doing anything more than getting some fresh air, so I followed her one night. Melissa and this guy got into the back seat of a Mercedes. I didn't go over to see exactly what they were doing, but I saw her legs in the air, and she handed him her panties when they got out of the car. I used my phone to take pictures of them getting in and out of that car, of her legs up in the air, and her handing him her panties. Now he hesitated a little, and then showed me the pictures. I stood there with my head down and my hands on my knees, trying hard not to throw up. Sam helped me sit down on the tailgate of his truck and handed me a bottle of whiskey. A couple of sips, and I was able to get hold of myself. Now what to do, I thought. If Sam was right, Melissa and I were done. "What are you going to do, buddy?" He offered me the bottle again. I refused the whiskey. My dad had been a drunk, and I didn't intend to let this turn me into one too. "Don't know just yet, but I'll do something." "You can believe that," I answered. Sam and I went into my office, and we downloaded the pictures from his phone to my computer. "Do you know any of these guys she was with? I think I'd like to have a little talk with them one at a time first." "I don't know them. I think they're just Saturday night cowboys that hang around the roundup." "Second, Chris, stop and think. You know none of them would have been with her without an invitation. This is all on her. And even though you'd feel better if you beat them up, if you go to jail because of her, she wins," Sam advised me. That night when I got home, I told Melissa I must have eaten something bad and went to bed early. I wasn't sure I could control my anger and pretended to be asleep when she came to bed. The next morning I left before she woke up and went to talk to David Ray. He was not only my boss but my good friend. I explained what was going on and what I wanted to do. "Are you sure this is what you want, Chris? Don't you want to talk to Melissa first?" "No need for any more talk. I've got witnesses and photos. What could she possibly say that would explain what she did?" It was a rhetorical question. I really didn't expect an answer. "Will you help me, David Ray?" I did expect an answer to that question. He picked up his phone and called the company's lawyer. After telling him what he wanted, David Ray listened for a minute and said, "I don't care what it takes, get it done. Bring the papers to me before the end of business today." Before I left the office, I had printed out the pictures and had the divorce papers for Melissa's signature. It's amazing how fast legal things can get done when you know the right people. David Ray knew the right people. Melissa was surprised when I came home early. I know it's a cliché, but I told her I had to go to Arkansas and would be gone for 2 nights. She helped me pack a bag and asked if I had time for a quickie before I had to leave. Shaking my head no, I left. She seemed a little upset when I didn't hug or kiss her before I left. Later, I thought I should have so she wouldn't be suspicious. I spent the rest of the day at one of the rigs talking to Bill. Around 8 p.m., I went home, and as expected, Melissa wasn't there. I made myself comfortable in my chair with a cooler full of beer and waited for my precious bride to come home. It was getting on to 1 a.m., but I was only on my 4th beer when Melissa came through the front door. She was alone, which was a good thing. I don't think I could have held myself back if she had brought someone home with her. Melissa locked the door and went into the kitchen. She turned on the light and got a beer. As she turned around, she saw the pictures I had spread out on the table. Her hair was messed up and her clothes looked wrinkled. "Oh God, no," she said. She looked around and saw me standing in the doorway and slumped down into a chair. "Honey, it's not what it looks like," she started. "It's exactly what it looks like, Melissa. It's my wife at a dance hall when she was supposed to be with her parents. It's my wife getting into the back seat of a car with someone other than her husband. It's my wife with her legs waving in the air. It's my wife giving her panties to some guy again, not her husband. Did I miss anything? Did I leave anything out?" As I talked, I could feel the rage and hurt building up in me. I threw my beer bottle against the wall above the sink, and it exploded, spraying the kitchen with beer and glass. Melissa flinched and said, "You were gone and I was lonely and it just sort of happened. I'm sorry." I couldn't believe she was going to use that tired old line. "It happened because I was gone?" That doesn't fly, girl. I was gone for 1 night before you started your little escapades. 1 night, not a month or even a week, but 1 night. Yes, I said escapades, plural. I know about at least 2 other guys, too. What I don't know is how many others there have been. Did the other 2 just sort of happen, too? The anger was fighting with my self-control, and I knew I had to get away from her. I went into the bedroom and carried my 2 suitcases out to my truck. I had packed them while waiting for her to come home. "Where are you going? Please stay and talk. We can get past this." It didn't mean anything. "You didn't even wait 12 hours after I left today before you went out to party. How lonely could you get in 12 hours? When I told you I was leaving, you were already planning your little fling." "No, that's not how it was. I went for a drive and ended up at the roundup. I didn't plan it and I didn't do anything wrong, I swear," she told me. "It's a damn shame." She sure is a pretty thing, I thought. We had it good for a while. I'll believe that if you can do one thing for me, Melissa, if you can show me that one thing and prove what you said, I will unpack, stay, and work this out. One thing, show me that you're still wearing your panties, or did you give them to the guy you were with tonight? The way she slumped further down into the chair and put her face in her hands answered that question. I threw the divorce papers in front of her and told her to sign them and get them back to my lawyer. I have been fair. Well, split what's in the savings and checking accounts, and you can have the furniture and your car. The house is rented, so that's not a problem. You can stay or go, it really doesn't matter because I'm gone. I suggest you sign them. You won't do so well if you contest the divorce. You know how the courts are here. Women who commit adultery do not fare well in the divorce courts of Oklahoma. It's still a good old boy state, and a cheating wife is treated about the same as a horse thief. Maybe that's not fair or politically correct, but that's the way it is, and that's okay too. I moved in with Sam for a while, and the first week away from Melissa was the hardest. The anger and hurt were still strong, but I missed her too. She called me every 2 or 3 hours on my cell and 3 or 4 times a day at the office. The first time she called my cell and at the office, I told her to leave me alone and sign the papers. I refused to take her calls at the office after that and turned off my cell. A new cell phone solved the problem of David Ray having to contact me when he or I were out of the office. The separation entered its second week, and Melissa started to wait for me in front of the company building. Karen would clue me in on which door she was at, and I would duck out the other one. Cowardly, I know, but I wasn't sure I could control myself and didn't want to take the chance that I might hit her. Finally, things reached a breaking point, and I told David Ray I was going to make a run to some of our wells in northern Texas and Oklahoma. The trip should take about 2 weeks, and maybe Melissa would understand that we were not going to work through this problem. When I came back from the business trip, Karen had a letter for me from Melissa. I started to throw it into the trash, but Karen ordered me to read it. You didn't mess with Karen. She was a force of nature. In the letter, Melissa promised that if I would give her 30 minutes to talk, she would sign the divorce papers if I still wanted her to. I called Melissa and set up a time to meet at my lawyer's office. I would give her 30 minutes and have this all over with, I thought. Friday afternoon at 1 p.m., I walked into the lawyer's office and Melissa was sitting in the conference room. The divorce papers were on the table in front of her. My attorney sat in to both run the meeting and as a witness. I slid the document across the table to Melissa and said, "Sign the papers, Melissa." "But you said you would give me 30 minutes, she said pleadingly. "I don't trust you. I could give you the time to talk and you could refuse to sign, and we would be right back to square one. I promise you, honey. Talk to me, and then I will sign if you still want me to," Melissa replied. "Yeah, you promise. But you promised that there would be no one but me when we got married too. You promised that you would quit going out dancing when I was gone, and you see how that went. Sign the damn papers, and I'll promise to talk. If I change my mind, we can tear up the papers." She signed the papers, and I had the lawyer witness and notarize them. Then he left us alone to talk. "You wanted to talk, so go ahead. The clock is ticking." I looked at my watch. Melissa spent the next 15 minutes telling me she was sorry. She said she was mad at me for going to Canada on our anniversary and went to the roundup to spite me. She continued, saying she had too much to drink and going out to that guy's car just sort of happened. Then I got the line about it didn't mean anything. It was only a fling, and I was the only one she loved. There was a lot more, but I let her talk without interrupting. Finally, she wound down and stopped talking. "Are you finished? Have you said everything you wanted to say to me?" She nodded. "Okay, now I have a few things to say to you. Before we got married, did Mike groping you in that booth just happen too? Your past behavior at those dance halls doesn't help me believe you. While I was in Canada, you went outside with at least 2 other guys. I have witnesses. Did that just happen too?" I spoke calmly, not yelling or shouting. My mom always told me that if you yelled at someone, they would get defensive or start to yell back. They would start thinking about how to defend themselves instead of paying attention to what you were saying. If your little fling in the back seat of the Mercedes just happened, what about the other 2 guys? If you felt guilty about what you did, why did you go back the very next night and every other night that I was gone? And you know the real kicker here, the real tragedy? Melissa was sitting across from me with tears running down her cheeks. She shook her head no in response. "You've destroyed everything I care about with your little, 'it just happened.' You've destroyed our marriage. I might be able to forgive you, but I won't ever forget. If we got back together, every time you didn't answer the phone when I called, or you took too long to go to the store or beauty shop, I would wonder if you were meeting someone. Every time I left on a trip, I would wonder if you would decide it was okay to go to a dance hall. I had to stop for a few seconds to regain my composure. You've destroyed my career and my home. I can't stay in Norman because everywhere I go, it reminds me of you. All the restaurants, the movie theaters, and even the dance halls would remind me of you, so I have to leave. But the worst thing you did was destroy any chance I would ever have of loving someone else. I'm dead inside. I can't let anyone get that close to me again because of what you did to me. I'm afraid of being hurt again. By this time, Melissa was really crying but still listening. I stood and looked down at her, then started toward the door. I won't wish you good luck, but I do hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. Maybe there's a guy out there willing to go along with you going dancing and being unfaithful, but it's not me, not by a long shot. Go to hell, Melissa. I walked out, leaving her sobbing at the table. David Ray had tried to talk me out of leaving, but understood why I couldn't stay. He wished me luck, told me I could always come back, and gave me my last paycheck. He shook my hand and turned back to his office. I believe he had tears in his eyes, too. Karen hugged me, kissed my cheek, and told me to let myself heal, and then come back to them. She definitely had tears in her eyes. Having already said goodbye to Sam and Bill and packed my stuff in my truck, I stopped and spent a couple of hours with Mom and Lily and left some money for them. They both knew what Melissa had done and didn't try to talk me out of leaving. As I hugged Mom goodbye, she said, "If you run from trouble or problems, you can get away for a little while. But every time you look over your shoulder, there they are, waiting for you. Go ease your mind for a little while, but you can't run away forever." She kissed me on the cheek and went back into the house. I promised to call or write as I traveled, then pointed the nose of my truck west and started driving. I had decided to leave Oklahoma and get out of the oil business. I didn't know where I was going or what I was going to do, but that last check David Ray gave me would keep me going for a few months. That check was for 3 months' salary and a sizable bonus. Because of you, I find it hard to trust not only women but everyone around me. Because of you, I am afraid. So back to where we started, I just turned 32 and am unemployed, looking for somewhere to land. Because of my last check from Evans Oil Company, I had enough to keep me going for 4 or 5 months if I didn't spend like a king. I headed west with stops in El Paso, Texas, where I spent a couple of days. My next stop was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. After 8 hours on the road, I was ready for a good meal and a night's sleep. I wasn't in a hurry, so I spent a few days as a tourist. The Sandia Peak Tramway was a peaceful ride up the mountain with a great view of beautiful country. I sampled the Tex-Mex menus at several cantinas and just relaxed for a while. I decided to go to California. I had never seen the ocean, and a little fun in the sun might just be the thing for this old boy from Oklahoma. When I got to the Pacific, I was suitably impressed. Pictures and movies don't do it justice. I kicked around the beach for about 2 weeks watching the waves. Mostly I watched the beachgoers in their little swimsuits. I may be emotionally dead and didn't want to get close to anyone, but I sure enjoyed looking at the sights on the beach and in the waterfront bars. While I was on the beach, David Ray called to tell me the divorce was final. I was legally a free man. A lot of people don't realize that there are several oil fields in California: Signal Hill, Santa Fe, and Huntington Beach, to name a few. In the early 1920s, California was the #1 oil-producing state in the country. I talked to a couple of people that David Ray had told me about and got a job with one of the companies. No, I wasn't a driller or a roughneck, but I did inspections and preventative maintenance on already producing wells. I figured I better make some money instead of just relying on David Ray's last check. I worked and hung around the LA Long Beach area for several months. Southern California is beautiful, has a great climate, and some of the most beautiful people in the world. However, it's not Oklahoma. There's just something about Oklahoma that draws people home, even to the flat plains of central Oklahoma. I decided I had run away long enough and needed to start heading back. There was no timeline, but I was going back to Norman. Leaving LA, I headed east on I-40 to Flagstaff, Arizona, then turned north to visit the Grand Canyon. It takes more than 1 day to see the canyon and appreciate it, so I spent 4 days there. I made the hike down into the canyon to Phantom Ranch, spent the night, and hiked back out the next day. Tough hike, but well worth the effort. I retraced my route back to Flagstaff and spent the night. The next morning, I headed back west to Laughlin, Nevada, which is on the Arizona-Nevada state line. Laughlin has several casinos and is like a mini Las Vegas. I knew this was backtracking a little, but Laughlin might be a good place to spend a few days. It was lively, loud, and full of people enjoying themselves. Maybe I could be like them instead of thinking about my ex-wife. I spent a couple of days exploring the different casinos. I saw a few of the floor shows and tested my luck and skills at Texas Hold'em. My first boss, Tom, and the boys on that first rig must have taught me well. I won a small tournament I entered. Aside from the cash prize, I won a seat in a much bigger tournament starting the next night. Not a small thing, that seat. The tournament had a 500 buy-in with a first place of 10,000. I really didn't think I could win, but if I could make it to the last 20 players, I would finish in the money and get my entrance fee back plus some. It took my mind off Melissa again. The lessons taught to me by Tom and the crew proved valuable. I didn't win, but I did place third and won 3,000. The casino wanted publicity pictures with the top 3 finishers and the casino manager. I hit the jackpot again. The manager was a friend and former classmate, Ron Harris. After the pictures, Ron invited me to have dinner with him in the VIP room. We had a good time catching up. Ron wanted to know what I had been doing. He asked if I had gotten off the oil rigs and what I was doing in Laughlin. I questioned him about the same things, ending with how he became the manager of the casino. You know, I took hotel management and business administration at school. After a training and breaking-in period, the company sent me here to Laughlin, Ron explained. Now, what's your story, and don't leave anything out. I told Ron about my job with Evans Oil to answer his question about getting off the oil rigs. The rest of my sad story concerning Melissa was told to him over more whiskey than I should have had. By the end of my story, I knew I was in no shape to drive, and Ron got me a room at the casino hotel. Ron did say he hoped Melissa rotted in hell or something like that. It's good to have friends. The next day, we met for brunch and continued catching up. What are your plans now, Chris? I haven't thought past the tournament last night. Don't really know what I want to do now, but this traveling around is getting old in a hurry. It's fine to do on a vacation, but not as a lifestyle, not for me anyway. We talked for most of the afternoon, and after I had a chance to rest for a couple of hours, we went to dinner again in the VIP section. Ron arranged for a couple of lovely young women to join us just for company, you understand. It was nice to look at some scenery that didn't have trees or mountains, but I wasn't interested in anything more than dinner company. The women were not professionals. They were a couple of Ron's friends, and he was willing to share with me. Like I said, it's good to have friends. Ron and the women left me at the bar after dinner and went on their way. I had one more drink, left the bar, and went to the VIP poker room. I didn't need to start looking at the world from the bottom of a bottle, even if it was a whiskey bottle. I watched the games for a few minutes and then sat in on a Hold'em game with a 2,500 buy-in. I was playing with my winnings from the tournament, so the buy-in didn't dig into my bankroll from David Ray's check or the money I had saved from my job in California. After about 2 hours, I decided to quit and cashed in my chips. I added another 8,000 to my bankroll. I went back to the bar to get one more drink before heading to bed. Sitting at the bar was Julie, one of the women who had joined Ron and me at dinner. She smiled at me and accepted my offer of a glass of wine. We had a very pleasant 2 hours of conversation until we were the only ones left in the bar. She suggested that we get a bottle of wine and adjourn to her room to continue our talk. The next morning, I woke up next to her in bed. The little noise she was making was so delicate that I don't think you could say she was snoring. I can't say it enough, it's really good to have friends. After showering, I kissed her goodbye as she lay in bed. Julie told me she enjoyed our time together and invited me to come back. I was going to meet Ron for breakfast before I left. This wasn't a relationship, just two healthy young people enjoying each other. Ron and I were eating when I told him about Julie. She's just what I needed to begin repairing my ego. Very nice woman. He just laughed and told me it was her idea to wait for me at the bar last night. I think she liked you from the start. Answer a question for me, will you? Ron continued without waiting for my okay. What the hell are you doing? The Chris I knew would never run away like you did. The Chris I knew would have stayed and rubbed her nose in what she lost. If you let it, all this will just follow you around. Talk to me, buddy. I looked at Ron for a few seconds and then started to laugh. You sound just like my mom, I said when I stopped laughing. She told me about the same thing. Your problems will stay with you until you face them head on. I didn't know you were that smart, Ron. We both laughed and talked as we finished breakfast. As I stood up, Ron asked, What are you going to do? I'm going to take a friend's advice and go rub Melissa's nose in what she threw away. I'm going home and getting on with my life. Thanks, Ron. If you're ever in Norman, give me a call. You're a good friend. Pointing the nose of my truck east, I started my drive back home. I would go to David Ray when I got home and see if my job was still available. After all, I had been gone for almost a year. If not, I could get a job as a roughneck or driller on one of the oil rigs and look for a chance to improve my life again. I could stay with Mom until I found my own place. Repeating history, I guess. Maybe so, but I was done running away. When I got to Norman, I went to Mom's place first, and she invited me to stay with her for as long as I needed to. The next morning, I was sitting on the hood of my truck in front of Evans Oil when David Ray got there. I had already been inside to see Karen, and she promised not to call David Ray so I could surprise him. He was on his cell phone when he pulled up in his Cadillac and not really paying attention. David Ray shut down his phone and climbed out of his car, taking about 3 steps before he saw me. He was so cool. There were no shouts of hello or grabbing my hand to shake it or even a smile. An outsider would have thought that these two old boys had just seen each other a short time ago. As David Ray passed me on his way into the office, he said, "Care for a cup of coffee, Chris?" I nodded and followed him to his office. Karen already had the coffee on his desk. She smiled at me, sort of shook her head, and smiled at David Ray's reaction to my return. Karen patted me on the shoulder and closed the door as she left. For the first time, David Ray showed some emotion. "Damn, I'm glad you're back, son. The timing couldn't be better." "Well, I'm glad the timing of my return meets with your approval, David Ray," I told him. "I need to get you up to speed on what's going on with the company because you have to take over the whole shooting match in 4 weeks. You'll have to run it for about 3 weeks after that." There was my answer about my job still being open, no question that it was. "What do you mean, run the whole thing for 3 weeks? What are you going to be doing?" I had no idea what he was talking about. "I can't very well take the business with me on my honeymoon now, can I?" "Boy, you're getting married?" "Stupid question. Why a honeymoon if there was no wedding?" "Oh, did I forget to tell you that?" "Yeah, I'm going to marry Betty Sue Anderson in a month and be gone for 3 weeks after that. Maybe longer, don't know for sure. Isn't she the woman who owns the cafe over on Main Street? When did all this come about?" David Ray explained it to me. He and Betty Sue had been dating sort of on the sly for about 7 months. She sold the cafe and her house and was going to move to Tulsa, but he wouldn't let her go. David Ray told her, "You might as well marry me and stay here. You know you'll just be driving back and forth to see me anyway." He did admit that it wasn't the most romantic proposal, but it worked. "I rented your old apartment after Melissa pulled out, and Betty Sue's kids can stay there while we're gone. They're old enough to look out for themselves." "How old are her kids, David Ray? How old is Betty Sue if she's got kids that can take care of themselves? For that matter, how old are you?" "Let's see. Kelly is about 24 and Jeff just turned 21. He's going into the Air Force in 3 months, so he won't be around much longer. The kids can manage in that 2-bedroom apartment until he leaves, and Kelly can stay there after that if she wants to. She broke it off with some guy in Dallas after she caught him in bed with her roommate and decided to come back home. As far as Betty Sue, I guess she's about 46 or so, and I'm of legal age and know what I'm doing." David Ray laughed at his joke about his age. "Oh, by the way, I need a best man. You up for the job?" He laughed again at the surprise on my face and took it for granted that I would say yes. David Ray had been married for 30 years to Mary, a woman he met when he was young. She passed away from breast cancer about 7 years ago, and he was just now getting to where he could open his heart to another woman. Betty Sue was a good woman, and I was happy for both of them. When David Ray was finished explaining everything, we stood up, and I reached out to shake his hand. Thanks for everything, David Ray, and congratulations on your upcoming wedding. You are welcome, Chris. Go see Karen to get your office straightened out and the paperwork to put your name back on the payroll. I'll call Betty Sue and tell her that I've got my best man lined up. He smiled at me, and as I was leaving, he said, "Glad you came back, son." Chris uncovered his wife's betrayal and chose to leave. But was walking away the right choice? What would you have done? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more intense stories.